Whether you're at home, at the office or at the gym, wherever you are, Newsroom is right there with you. Bringing you all the latest news, updates, sports, weather and everything in between. Get all the latest news you need on the go via live streaming on our YouTube channel. That's Newsroom, weekdays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
It's 900 hours Central Africa time on this Thursday, the 18th of February 2016. This is Newsroom on SABC News Channel 404. Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock. You have to stay with us as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. Remember that we're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. Question of the day we're posing to you, and that relates to the safety in mines. You know about the Lily mine currently happening there, where miners are stuck underground and they can't be released. We're asking you the question, how can safety in mines be enhanced? That's our question to you. Let us know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. Also like us on the Facebook page. But before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
Right, Elvis,
good morning.
Good morning to you. It was a great night of action on both track and field last night. In fact, I get a little ahead of myself. Good morning and welcome to the show. We're going to be bringing you headlines of exactly what happens in the sporting field at about 10:20 or so, but we'll be sure to bring that a little later after Elvis gives us the headlines for the day.
Right, your headlines right now. Let's take it from the top. Rescue operations at the Lily Gold Mine are stopped. The President responded to debate on his State of the Nation address. And Ugandans head to the polls. Those are all your headlines, but Kendall, some more sports news.
Absolutely fantastic stuff. This is what we've been waiting for all morning. This is what's coming up in the sports today. Free State Stars cause more consternation for Pirates as they beat the Buccaneers 1-0 in Global Park.
At some point to try
and in the UEFA Champions League, Ronaldo hits the mark as Real Madrid get an away win at Roma.
Lorenzi, and Ronaldo hits it! Deflected in!
Superstar Genzebe Dibaba is back in the limelight, smashing the indoor mile record by an amazing 4 seconds in Stockholm.
4:13.32. She's destroyed it yet again.
Like I said, quite a lot of great action from both track and field last night. And back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. He will be back a little bit later. Our top story this hour, the rescue operation at the Lily Gold Mine in Mpumalanga has been stopped for at least 2 weeks. Further rockfalls over the weekend have closed the route used by the rescue teams. New equipment that will be used to drill another opening arrives today.
Families of the 3 miners trapped underground will have to wait another 2 weeks before their members could be found. Rock engineers advised it's not safe for rescue teams to go under, as there is only one escape route from underground.
It is state-of-the-art drill machine, which is going to be used to drill a 600mm hole, just the right size to get a person out of the underground in an emergency.
Mineral Resources Minister says the families have been informed.
We have indicated to them that it is not our wish that this operation is going to stop for the next 2 to 3 weeks, but we have to abide by the law so that everybody that goes down is safe.
Union AMCU leader Joseph Matunjwa, who went underground with rescue teams, explains.
The health and safety laws doesn't allow any underground working to use only one opening. You need to have 2 openings. For instance, when one opening get damaged, and then you'll be able to rescue people to move out of underground safely so.
Families have opted to remain at the mine until rescue operation resumes. Meanwhile, the mine has ended false speculation about one of its workers committing suicide.
The person that committed suicide does not work for Vantage Goldfields, and he certainly does not work for Lily Mine.
Rock drilling will resume on Friday. Sibongile Mkani-Mpolweni, SABC News, Barberton in Mpumalanga.
President Jacob Zuma will respond to the debate on his State of the Nation address today. The debate has raged in Parliament over the past 2 days, with ANC MPs coming out forcefully in defence of the President.
The ruling party came out fighting to dispel the notion by opposition parties that President Zuma is unfit to lead.
But the electorate not only wants to hear a broken record. They are faced with a global economic crisis and are expecting leaders in Parliament to also demonstrate a stroke of scarce genius and say to the President, what you said to the nation address will not work, and these are the alternative solutions to create jobs, to move millions of South Africans out of poverty, and to reduce the wage gap. But we had nothing of that from this side of the House.
When you were running the city of Johannesburg under separate development in Alexander, you made Alexander a little corner, a dumping site, a refuse site, and the ANC, within a period of 20 years, under a democratic local government, we have changed and we are battling to change Alexander.
Ministers even used their successes in their own portfolios to defend the president's legacy.
If we take the figures for a full 12 months, it shows that the economy created 712,000 more jobs. Most of those jobs came from agriculture, construction.
It's negative to account.
Harsh language among members threatened the good order of proceedings.
Can you withdraw the word rubbish?
Just over accommodation. A bus was set alight, paintings belonging to the university were destroyed, and the Vice-Chancellor's office was petrol-bombed. They were released on bail and the case was postponed until next month. Construction company Marion Roberts has been given a provisional go-ahead to resume work on the area where the temporary pedestrian bridge over the M1 freeway in Sandton, north of Johannesburg, collapsed in October last year. 2 people were killed and 19 injured. A site inspection was held yesterday.
The site of the accident has been sealed off since mid-October. A prohibition notice ensured that no work was done until preliminary investigations had been concluded. The chief construction company says the delay is costing it money. It's been granted permission to resume work under strict conditions.
One of those is that they would need to present us with their risk assessment, safety plan. We also need to have their sequencing, meaning their method of taking this process forward. So all those things have to be in place. But the other thing that we are also insisting on is to say that where the accident actually took place has been declared a no-go area. That area is still under the prohibition notice.
It's emerged that at least 10,000 people used the temporary bridge before it collapsed. An average of 1,000 per hour and as many as 3,000 during peak times. Pedestrians have mixed feelings.
Since that bridge has been collapsed here, so I don't feel safe anymore. I'm always wondering if when I pass here too.
It was very astounding. However, it is part of the construction business risk. I think, there's some risks that are involved.
No, I don't really feel safe because when you pass here, you can see that maybe you have that fear, maybe that the bridge can collapse any time.
At the moment, you feel safe.
At the moment, I feel safe because what happened has not happened since.
The inquiry resumes in April. Key witnesses will give their account of that fateful day. Nozintombi Mia, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Further afield on the continent now, Ugandans vote today in what is expected to be a tense election for President Yoweri Museveni, who is seeking another term in office after ruling for 30 years. He faces two main challenges: the long-term opposition leader Kizza Besigye and the former Prime Minister Amama Mbabazi.
Police say they won't let anyone cause chaos during the election. Over 15,000 police personnel have been deployed across the country.
As we have done in the past, I supported the Electoral Commission, and as we obviously continue to do in this particular, the critical phase where our people are going to the polls.
But Monday's clashes with the opposition left one person dead. A police officer was also injured. Security personnel are already patrolling the streets and will continue through Thursday's vote. But the sight of uniformed men has heightened the fear of the possibility of election violence.
It scares us because whenever we are doing our work and you see all over the security is scattered, it sometimes scares us.
The 2016 election has been described by many as a tight contest. Leon Senyage, SABC News, Kampala.
And back home, victims of asbestosis mining activities at Priska in the Northern Cape are calling for adequate compensation for the ill health they acquired while working in the mines around town. The victims say although they received monetary compensation in the past, it was not enough. They are now calling on government to intervene.
Priska, one of the oldest towns in the Northern Cape, has a population of about 15,000. The town is also popular for its asbestos mining activities, which dates back to 1890s. Those employed at the mines saw it as a source of income, but were not aware of the risk involved. 80-year-old pensioner Martha Williams was one of those who fell victim, posed by asbestos mining. She was employed at KPLC Asbestos Mining Company for 50 years. She is now living with mesothelioma, an asbestos-related illness which has severely affected her life.
I get tired all the time. I cough up blood and walking is a nightmare, as my whole body is constantly in pain, all because of asbestos.
Another person living with mesothelioma is 72-year-old pensioner William Nohenda. Nohenda contracted the disease while working in the mines 20 years ago.
Asbestos is eating me up inside. I can't sleep during the night as I'm always sweating and I'm taking medication and I'm always in pain.
The Concerned People Against Asbestos, an organization established in 1990 to assist asbestos victims get compensation, says more still needs to be done for people affected by asbestos.
The government have not done much enough, because when I can even refer you to the Compensation Commissioner for Occupational Disease there in Johannesburg, these people need a record of service from these people. And if you may count from these mines were established 1893 and closed down 1976. Where will these people have a record of service which is approved for the Compensation Commissioner to be compensated? And even that compensation they received from the Compensation Commissioner is not money.
The organization says about 95% of the town's population is infected with asbestos-related illnesses, as asbestos is found in the dust that is constantly blown by the wind. Some of the houses in town were also built with asbestos. Puleng Mudupe, SABC News, Priska in the Northern Cape.
Now, South Africa was the world's third largest asbestos exporter for more than a century. But it all came to an end when the country banned the use, the manufacturing and processing of all asbestosis or asbestos. The market crashed in the mid-80s when cases of serious illnesses, including lung cancer, were reported by those who resided and worked in the mines. The South African government has been on a mission to rehabilitate abandoned asbestos mines and contemplate to recompensate the victims. In our Cape Town studios now we are joined by the Deputy Minister, Godfrey Oliphant, to talk to us about the developments in relation to the rehabilitation of mines. Minister, very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, and good morning to the viewers and the listeners.
Deputy Minister, why has the rehabilitation of the asbestos mines become a priority to the Mineral Resources Department?
It became a priority because of the history that you've just outlined, that asbestos has been very dangerous to the lungs of our people you've made examples of those in Priska, in the Northern Cape, in Kuruman, in Penj, in Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and in Gauteng. Mm-hmm. So we've been traversing the country to try and really locate all these ex-mine workers, because it's important that the state must take charge and look after them. We started this process. We've got special clinics for them already. The asbestos cases have been a very difficult one, because they've been engaged with some lawyers before who got monies on their behalf, and it has been a difficult situation to get around that one. But as government, we have taken responsibility firstly to ensure that the rehabilitation takes place. We have already done some and a lot of the rehabilitation around the country, and there's still a lot to be done. Government has taken the responsibility because the people who left these mines did not mostly leave enough provision for rehabilitation. So the state is paying for it every year, but we want to continue both rehabilitation of old mines and also to ensure that the legacy of mine, especially on the impact of people who are sick now, is also addressed.
Mm-hmm. Now, when we talk about the rehabilitation of the mines, is it only going to be in the Priska area or is it around the country?
No, it's around the country. We've got close to 6,000 sites in the country of what we call derelict and ownerless mines. Mm-hmm. In other words, the mines whose owners we cannot trace, so we've got to ensure that we correct the environment in those sites. And it's a program that is going to continue for many years. And it's asbestos and others. You also have gold, you also have old mines of coal and so on. So all the commodities that were mined for the past over 100 years. And it was only in 1991 that the law was strengthened to ensure that there is some provision to look after the environment. Otherwise, there was a lot of irresponsible mining that happened before that. Mm-hmm. We strengthened the law with the new democratic government in 1994, and when we started the process of the MPRDA as well. So we're quite sure that we have strengthened. It's never enough, but we're ensuring that everyone who mines now in our country make provision for rehabilitation.
Mm-hmm. Has some of the mines Deputy Minister, already been rehabilitated from the 6,000 that you're talking about?
No, some have already. For instance, the Mintec, which is an institution reporting under the DMR, has already done about 25 that we know about. Out of asbestos, we've got about 245 mines. And we've got also Council for Geoscience that goes around to profile these mines properly. So we know for sure that we're going to need a lot of money to do the rehabilitation of all the asbestos. Is going to cost the country about 2 billion rands, and we'll have to do it. We've got no other choice, both for the exposures that we have in communities, the dumps that are there, and also the shafts that are there. It's a program that we continue with every year, and we've got to accelerate that program.
Just briefly on that issue, because the rehabilitation process that continues, please briefly explain to us what does that process actually entails, the rehabilitation?
It entails where there are shafts, we kept them. We close the shafts so that people don't have access to them. But where we have exposures, even in dumps, what we do, we level those dumps properly, we make them look all right, and we also put some topsoil on it, where the asbestos fibers are exposed. After that, we put vegetation around it, and in some areas where it needs to be, we put fencing around those areas so that people don't have access to those exposed asbestos shafts.
Mm-hmm. Now, just going back to the victims, in our previous package that we had one of the members saying there that they need to have proof of employment, which some of the mines are closed in the 70s already. What are you doing to these people, and how are you accommodating them in order for them to be recompensated?
No, it's not necessarily that. We understand that not all people have got those records. Mm-hmm. So we have been trying to put a central database of all ex-mine workers. And we have been going to all the provinces to try and say, let's get your details. And we've got a reasonably populated database now in the Department of Health for 3 reasons. The first reason is that there are people who still have a lot of money in government. As we speak, we're looking for about 104,000 people who have contracted TB and some of those lung diseases, etc. We've got their names. We are trying to find them. That's why we're going around the country to do that. So we're urging everybody who has worked in the mines to ensure that we'll, at the end of this, I'll give a toll-free number, as you please, so that they can phone that number. But we're also ensuring that we go into these communities ourselves to do what we call registration of these people. There are volunteers on the ground in many areas who are helping to fill in. It's a simple form, one form that just puts the detail where you worked and so on. And we've been working with before we were working with TEBA as well. Unfortunately, they were also asking for some money from these workers who didn't have. But we have some volunteers who are doing it free of charge. We've been working with the trade unions because some of them still have ex-mine workers on their data as members. We're working with the Chamber of Mines as well, because in their database they've got all these people to basically trace the people whose files we were able to find. We're able to trace files at least up to, since 2000, they have been processed, and that's why I'm saying with confidence that some of them have been paid before. As we were traversing the country, some of them still have to be paid. We've got 2 special clinics for ex-mine workers and current mine workers, and one is in the Eastern Cape, next to Nelson Mandela Academic Hospital. This we launched, I think it was in 2014. So we've seen already a lot of ex-mine workers there, and we continue to do that. We've got another one in the Carltonville. We're supposed to have erected another one in Kuruman, and another one in Burgersfort. Kuruman is in the Northern Cape, but another one in Burgersfort, in Limpopo. There have been some delays that we have been able to resolve, and we must apologize for those delays. We should be able to start construction very soon. We're supposed to have finished this last year, in December.
Minister, we haven't got much time, but 2 things quickly that I want to find out from you. What about those people that has contracted a disease, that has worked in these mines, but has died already? Will their family members be compensated?
In these programs that we are doing, we also take in the details of widows, the children of those who are still alive, and even relatives who can come up and tell us that my uncle, my aunt worked in this mine and so on, because we are able to work with the mines that are existing. And also we can still go back to the records that we have. We've got some records, but we can't have all of it now. So we're encouraging them also to come up. The number that I was talking about, which is a toll-free number for inquiries, is 080 1000 240. I'll repeat the number, 080 1000 240. We encourage all of those to phone that number, to be able to just record their ID number so that they are in the system. But like we are saying, we are going to fast-track this process this year, and we are going to ensure that we reach each and every one that we are able to reach who was working in the mines currently and also in the past.
Deputy Minister, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, sir.
That was the Deputy Minister, Godfrey Oliphant, talking to us about the developments in relation to the rehabilitation in mines, of course, and recompensation for those who have been compensated before. So you can also do that. That number again, I'm going to repeat it, and we're going to maybe put it on the system a little bit early on your screen so you can have it. It's 0800 1000 240. You can lodge your complaint to the department, 080 1000 240. Now remember, we're also asking you a very important question. That question relates, of course, to safety in mines in the country. The question that we pose to you: how can safety in South African mines be enhanced? Let me know what's on your mind on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter handle. Let's take a look at some of your comments. Now, President Jacob Zuma will today respond to his State of the Nation address. The ANC MPs have come out forcefully in defense of the president during the day 2 of the State of the Nation debate. Here are some of your comments. This one from Remember Mandela says, morning. Conclusion is that the opposition parties don't know the meaning of the SONA debate. To them, it's just politics and votes. At Sakina Kamwendo. This one from Mario Stradum says, I really enjoyed the SONA debate. We have some talented young politicians on both sides of the aisle. Who were standouts for you? At Max Depree asked Mario Stradum. Sikelela says, did Buti Manamela address any issues affecting the youth like drugs, unemployment, education and so on? Hashtag SONA debate, that one from Sikelela. Amokulani says, politics in RSA has become a stupid verbal game that is guided by self-enrichment than rather focusing on the core issues that really prevails. Hashtag at the SONA debate, says Amokulani there on the Twitter handle. Now you can do the same. But let's now take a look at what's happening on the front pages of the newspapers around the globe. We start off in Europe. The Times report that the number of EU migrants working in Britain has surged beyond 2 million. This as pressure grows on David Cameron to deliver his promise to curb the benefits that EU migrants workers top 2 million in blow to Cameron. Moving now to New York, the International New York Times says a massive bomb hit a military convoy in the Turkish capital yesterday, killing at least 28 people and injuring 61 others. And finally, in Tehran, in Iran, the Tehran Times reports that Iran and Georgia discussed ways of economic cooperation and made agreements on the expansion of electricity ties. So says the Iranian Energy Minister Hamid Chichian in a press conference on Tuesday after his meeting with Kaka Kaladze, the Georgian Energy Minister. Let's now take a look at what is happening in the courts today here at home. We start off in Johannesburg, where the closing arguments in the Donald Sebolai murder case are expected to take place. The former Soweto DJ dubbed Donald Duck was found guilty of killing his girlfriend Dolly Tshabalala in 2014. Still in Johannesburg, the Constitutional Court is expected to hand down judgment in a case about the detention of migrants. Last year, the Home Affairs Department appealed a Supreme Court of Appeal decision saying that their failure to designate facilities for the detention of migrants made them liable for damages. Now, those are some of the headlines here at home. We will take a short break and we'll be right back after that, so you have to stay tuned. Our theme for this morning is safety in mines.
I'm Peter Ndoro.
And I'm Vavakshini Chetty Miller, SAB Miller, and Bush Imbev. It's something that I need to learn to say more often.
Will together produce around a third of the world's beer.
It is a mouthful. Have you ever considered skin bleaching?
Nigeria tops the list of African countries with 77% of its women bleaching their skin.
Now I can see that it is not good because it affects my face and some of my body parts.
Thousands of Arab Israelis and Palestinians participated in a big rally. Flight MH17 was shot down by a Russian-made missile.
How those chips may fall is a prediction best left to the currency of time.
That's Primetime News, Africa Journal, and Your World on SABC News.
Now, as I indicated earlier, our theme for today is mining rehabilitation and safety in mines. Now, Mintec, a mineral research and development organization, was tasked with a contract to clean and rehabilitate abandoned asbestos mines as well as others. Peter Craven from Mintec is in studio to talk to us about the mine rehabilitation project. Peter, very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning to you, and thanks very much for the opportunity.
Now, we heard from the Minister earlier on, the Deputy Minister, that it's a huge project. You're looking at about 6,000 mines, plus minus?
Yes, as the Deputy Minister said, 6,000 mine sites in total. Not all of them are asbestos.
Okay, so
it's a tremendous range of operations. Probably he mentioned 250 asbestos mines.
Oh, correct, yes. Now, if we take that in consideration, when did the rehabilitation process start, number one, and number two, how many have you done so far?
Well, Mintec, as you know, is a government organisation. We report in, as the Minister said, to the Department of Mineral Resources. We started in 2010, first charged by the DMR to start. And we've done predominantly asbestos mines since then, and we've rehabilitated 25.
Now, I asked the Minister briefly to explain the process, but maybe you can expand on that in terms of what goes into the rehabilitation process of the mine. Where do you start?
Well, as the Minister said, we've been left this terrible legacy of open shafts, open adits into the hillsides, dumps, buildings constructed out of asbestos material, roads constructed out of asbestos material, material that can wash into rivers unless it's attended to. So what we try and do is stabilize that. We can never return it to the original pristine condition, obviously. But what we try and do is rehabilitate it to a permanent position for as long as practically possible. So we contour the dumps to prevent the erosion. We put down those gabions, the mesh boxes containing rocks, to try and stop the tows of the dumps washing into riverbeds. We remove material from the rivers. We demolish any buildings, equipment around. And as the Minister said, we then cover it with a topsoil and revegetate it when possible. So we try and return the area to a safe condition for the surrounding communities and for the intended land use.
Can the land be reutilized?
Yes, it can. Given time, the vegetation will grow. It can be grazed, and it is grazed by animals. In fact, one of the biggest problems we've got is when we plant vegetation, the fresh vegetation is very attractive to goats, etc., that move into the areas. And as the Deputy Minister said, we have to fence off these areas to prevent that grazing. So asbestos is not like gold mine dumps that are very difficult to plant material on, etc. It's the fibers in the dumps that create the problem for people. But in terms of revegetation, etc., it's not a problem. It will return to its original surface condition.
And that would be for asbestos as well as gold mines. It would be the same, but gold mines, you say, is a little bit different.
The approach used in gold mines would be very different. There you have to chemically stabilize the dumps because of the acid that's created in the dumps, the heavy metals there, etc. So the techniques that you use are very, very different. Both of them provide a terrible problem in their own right.
Yes. Now, some of the rehabilitation programs that has been completed already, the communities around there, how do they feel about these processes?
I would say mixed feelings, because they've suffered from this terrible legacy, and they suffered from for decades. The rehabilitation exercise itself is not a long-term job-creating opportunity. Although you do try and afford the local opportunity, the local community opportunities for temporary jobs, they are temporary jobs. So they are not seeing any benefit in the long term other than the removal of this terrible health risk.
Now, the health risk that was there already when miners contracted asbestosis during the process, the workers that's working on the rehabilitation site now, are they not exposed to this type of
No, we're very careful about that. As was said on the interview earlier, you've got workers that were exposed to liberation of these fibers from the rock for 8 hours a day for decades. But having said that, we don't want to minimize any risk. So we wear the right protective clothing, you dampen down the conditions, and we're very, very careful with inspections. You've got the right people inspecting the site, you've got the right techniques, professional techniques that you're working to. So we don't believe that there's any risk to the current workers that we are not addressing by the measures that we've put in place.
Besides the grazing and the planting that's happening right now, what other means or what can the facility or the land be utilized for after the rehabilitation process?
Well, most of these mines are not in urbanized or industrial areas. So there probably aren't land use opportunities for industrial purposes. But certainly rehousing provides areas for housing. One of the sites was in the middle of Priska. It was turned into a parkland. Many of the other sites are in the mountains with the local communities, many of the communities originating from the original mining operations that are still in the area. So there it would probably be grazing and natural vegetation, and you're trying to prevent the erosion and the transmission of that risk down to the local communities.
Let's look at gold mining. I've seen around Johannesburg, because there's a lot of dump sites here that has been rehabilitated in terms of that, where they've taken out some of the gold and it's been reused. And in fact, I believe that they do take gold out of the dump sites. Those sites, what can they be used for as well?
As you say, the dumps will go. It's a question of economics. The first dumps were treated in 1977 when East Rand Gold and Uranium, Ergo, started on the East Rand. And it's always a question of what the value is of the remaining gold and uranium and the pyra to produce sulfuric acid in the dumps. But in time, all of those dumps will be treated. The economics will be favorable for treating all of those dumps. They're very different to the asbestos dumps, as you've noticed. They're right in the middle of the industrial areas, residential areas, etc. So there, the land use will be far more valuable in terms of residential or industrial application.
What happens, so when you rehabilitate the mine, you actually close it off completely.
Yes.
And it's secure that nobody else can enter into it, because we've seen a lot of Zama-Zamas using the mines as areas where they can mine.
Yes. In the case of asbestos, fortunately, you don't have that problem because asbestos is effectively banned throughout the world. Interestingly enough, Canada was actually the last country to ban asbestos, not South Africa. So Canada continued their asbestos mining operations for some time after South Africa. But there isn't current value to the asbestos. So there is no opportunity for illegal mining.
But for
very
gold?
Different to the gold mines.
Yes.
The gold mines, as you say, that's an ongoing problem that is being attended to by the DMR.
Well, Peter, all the best of luck, because I think it's a long-term process. When do you envisage this program to come to an end?
Well, the projects are getting bigger and bigger now. The easy, smaller projects that provided the immediate risk have been attended to. We're moving into very large, very expensive projects, so it's still going to take some years to come. And it has to be prioritized in terms of the other problems in South Africa, the other 6,000 sites that the Deputy Minister mentioned. So the DMR will obviously prioritize this depending on the hazard posed to the community.
Just one more question, I almost forgot. Mine acid drainage, especially at the gold mines,
Yes.
how do you deal with that as well at the same time?
Well, that's very different. You don't have that problem at all with the asbestos mines.
Yeah.
Fortunately, there's no chemical problem with the asbestos mines, and they're very far apart from the gold mining operations at the moment. Acid mine drainage, I think, is a field in itself that I do a disservice trying to answer in one question, one sentence.
Peter, thank you so much for joining us in studio.
Thank you very, very much.
Now that was Peter Craven from Mintech in studio to talk about mine rehabilitation projects that they're busy. Massive project, over 6,000 mines, and as you heard, there are 25 done so far, so they've got a lot more work to be done. Let's take a look at some of your comments. The first one here, the University of Cape Town yesterday dismissed claims by the Rhodes Must Fall movement that it was discriminating against black students and instead prioritizing the accommodation to foreign white students. Now, earlier this week, protesters went on a rampage, torching a bus and destroying artifacts. Let's take a look at some of your tweets. This one says, "It makes me mad of how people were losing their minds when artwork from UCT was burnt, but said nothing when students were homeless." Shackville says FMH there, uses a derogatory word which I will not use. Mbangi says, "Before we shout and lambaste the kids and treat them like criminals for wanting decent opportunities, we should probably listen to them." Hashtag UCT, says Bungi. And this one from Zane Ford said, "Destroying art is the lowest, most destructive act. It's deplorable." Hashtag UCT, says Zane. Mandisa says, "The UCT must deal harshly with the students who destroy university property. Universities are places of debate to agree and disagree, and not anarchy." Mandisa, I agree with you fully. Those are some of your comments. You can keep them coming on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. Also like us on the Facebook page. If you like us there, you become part and parcel of this growing family, and you can post your comments. Let's take a look at what is happening on our Newsroom Facebook page this morning. In South Africa, the management of the Lily Gold Mine near Barberton in Mpumalanga now says that the search for its 3 staff members will only resume in about 3 weeks' time. And then police and military personnel have been deployed in Uganda's capital, Kampala, ahead of today's election. And trucks carrying humanitarian aid entered 5 besieged areas of Syria, scheduled for deliveries yesterday in a UN-backed deal to deliver help to thousands of trapped residents. Now, you can find all of these stories and more on our Newsroom Facebook page, or you can visit our SABC website at www.sabc.co.za/news. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back after that. Stay tuned.
Adventure film starring Ivan Buerta and Donnelly Roberts. The story begins in the beautiful vineyards of Paarl in the Western Cape. The adventure takes off when the characters find themselves on the tropical island of Love, Mauritius.
Josephine's work is more interesting and distinguishable. She visits war-stricken zone countries to tell the story of the damage war often leaves behind.
This particular exhibition's case, places that are named after conflict or disaster or war or reconciliation.
And basically what it is it's a collection of the best animated short films from around the world this year. And the idea is to inspire animators and directors with this exciting content. And so that's been offered to us as a cinema, and we're very excited to be screening the animated show of shows here in South Africa.
Join Refulwe Mulwa for that 1-hour weekly dose of arts and entertainment news every Friday at 9 p.m. on Trends.
Welcome back. Now, the focus today is on safety in mines as well as the rehabilitation of mines. And we're asking you a very important question. We'd like to find out from you, what do you make of the safety in mines, and how can safety in mines be enhanced in South Africa? You can send us your views at SABC Newsroom as well as chat to us on the Facebook page. Now, in 2001, 7,500 claimants stood to benefit from the settlement, which had to be paid out through a trust fund. A total of 220 million rand was expected to be paid out to asbestosis-related disease sufferers within the next 6 months, and a further 200 million over the next 10 years. Now, for years, asbestos workers groups have struggled to get official recognition for all asbestosis victims and the fullest compensation for the harm that they have suffered. Northern Cape National Union of Mine Workers Provincial Secretary Cornelius Mane now joins us from Kimberley. Mr. Mane, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning to you and the listeners.
Mr. Mane, what is the latest concerning the compensation for the asbestos victims, especially in the Northern Cape, which has suffered tremendously?
Yeah, no, thank you. You know, the latest news around the compensation is that, like we have said earlier, that, you know, the people have not yet get the money that is due for them because you know, there was a trust, and that trust, there was a Kalahari trust, which was formed, and that trust, we were not involved as NUM, but later on, when the trust was not doing well, then they involved us. So people have not yet get their compensation right now because we are still tracing a lot of people who have passed away, and some of them, their children are there, but we are still tracing them. So the people have not yet get their money.
Now, what is the union doing, Mr. Mane, to help the victims and the families that have been affected, taking in consideration that some of them have passed away already?
No, like I have said, as NUM, you know, there was a trust. Our former deputy president, Comrade Crosby Moni, was sitting in that trust. But then, like I've said, he have passed away. But then we don't have a seat. There will be an AGM whereby we think that we are going to have a seat. But as NUM, we are not just sitting. We are, like I said, we are engaging with the government, so that the process can fast track. We were having a meeting last year with the deputy minister, whereby we identify ways and means of getting those people so that they can get their money. So as NUM, we are working 24 hours around the clock to make sure that the people got their money.
Now, those that are still alive, and some of them that did receive some compensation, they feel that the compensation was not enough. Do you also assist people with that process in order to make sure that they are being recompensated?
Yeah, like I'm saying, we are helping them, and we are engaging with the government. As NUM, you must understand that we were having a problem with the law, because our position as NUM was to say that even the people who are affected by the environment, they must be compensated, but the law doesn't cater them for that. But as NUM, we are continuing to engage the government, because we feel strongly that the people who are affected by the environment, they must also get something from the trust. So we are helping people as NUM.
Mm-hmm. Now, what are the union's standpoint with regards to the rehabilitation of some of these asbestos mines? Are you working with the authorities to assist with that process as well?
We are aware of the program of the government, but we are not directly involved as NUM, but we are pushing. Like I said, that we are aware of the program, but there is this man managers association whereby the issue of rehabilitation is being discussed, and as NUM we are part of that. We are part of the tripartite meeting whereby the health and safety issues are discussed. So we are pushing in that meeting that the issue of environmental rehabilitation must be fast-tracked.
And then there is currently an ongoing case in London for asbestos victims. Do you support such moves by victims of asbestos?
As NUM, we will always support the victims, because, like I have said, we don't want to see anyone suffering in South Africa. So we support the victims.
Yes, and then just lastly, Mr. Mane, what are some of the challenges that you face as a union when trying to help these victims? Do you have any obstacles?
Not necessary, but the problem is, like I have said, that in the trust we were not involved, but there is no obstacle, because we can engage with the government, stuff like that. We are having access to the people and stuff like that, so there is no hassles.
Mr. Mane, thank you so much for your time there. He is from the National Union of Mine Workers in the Northern Cape. He's the Provincial Secretary, Mr. Cornelius Mane, chatting to us about the situation there. Now, let's take a look at some of your comments. Now, polls open in Uganda's presidential and parliamentary elections, but several stations in the capital were delayed, awaiting the ballot papers there. Let's take a look at some of your comments. This one from Jeff D says, as Uganda decides today, the world is waiting to see the outcome, though it's a tough test. Government machinery against the people, says Jeff D. Wairumu says, Uganda decides, imagine a person in power for 30 years and still fighting to retain power. Ngai Baba, says Wariri. Morris says, hello to everyone. Let's us ensure free and fair, peaceful elections in our country. Uganda decide. That's a hashtag there from Morris. And the people of Uganda decides, be wise enough, says Moses Mangeni. Simon Kiriu says, it is not who votes that counts, it's who counts the votes. Uganda decides, says Simon. This one from Jael says, good morning, friends. Today, Uganda decides at the ballot. Let's make a little prayer for this great African nation. May they vote wisely, says Jael. Now, those are some of your comments. You can keep them coming here on the Twitter handle. As you can see and know that we broadcast throughout the African continent, and you can also tweet us on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. Also like us on the Facebook page and comment there. Right now, it's over to Philip Hawkins with your weather forecast.
Yeah, thanks a lot and a very good morning to you. Well, let's take a look at what's going on in terms of your weather. And to start off with, yesterday, late afternoon to early evening, Johannesburg and the surrounding areas of the Highveld experienced some fairly severe storms and thunderstorms, even some hail coming down in some areas. Very isolated incidents, but we did see that nonetheless. Today, we're also expecting rainfall all the way throughout South Africa's eastern regions here. It's already been raining this morning in a lot of those regions, and rainfall intensifies along its southeastern regions as well as parts of the central interior. Now, stormy systems are forecast there, and stormy systems as well forecast through Central Africa. You can see a lot of cloud cover here. Cloud cover also forecast in northern Africa, but no rainfall there, and of course, that's no surprise, is it? Now, taking a look along the western coastlines there, we're still seeing quite a bit of rainfall in the area. Rainfall extending towards the eastern coastline as well. Heavier morning showers for the eastern coastline, but as we move through the day, we're going to see those showers really concentrated over the western regions, especially the western interior here of Angola, northeastern Angola, expecting some stormy systems. Now, as we take a look in a little bit more detail what's going on, this is what we're going to see. 36-degree maximum for Pretoria is going to be peaking at around 24 degrees for Pietermaritzburg. So a little bit of a mild day there in Pietermaritzburg, 23 degrees in Port Elizabeth. And you can see those storm systems raging all the way throughout this entire area. Towards Windhoek, 29 degrees. Temperatures moving towards the northeastern areas of around Lilongwe, 28 degrees. And warming up again as we move north in towards Dar es Salaam and Mombasa, 32-degree highs respectively for each of these. Now, Kilimanjaro receives rainfall for today. Moving further north, that rainfall dissipates entirely towards Nairobi, 29 degrees. No rainfall whatsoever throughout this area of Africa and the Horn of Africa. Expecting a warm one. 31-degree maximums there. A very, very dry one there as well. Humidity very low, and we are hoping for some rain in the area, but unfortunately not today. Now, Mecca peaks at 34 degrees, temperatures of 24 in Dubai. We saw quite a bit of rainfall and foggy conditions yesterday there in Dubai, but today seeing a more clear, partly cloudy sky forecast for you there. Tehran, the same forecast for your sky conditions, but only a 12-degree high means it's going to be a chilly one there. Cairo peaks at 32 degrees. And temperatures only dropping severely as we move west along the northern coastline there. Tunis, Tripoli, Algiers, all expecting only a 17-degree maximum today. and rainfall around the Rabat, Marrakesh and Los Palmas region means it's going to be a little bit of a cool one there and a wet one. High wind speeds forecast for many of these areas as well. Quickly in towards Lagos, a 31-degree high. Abidjan peaks at 29 degrees. Isolated showers forecast for these regions, and the same can be said as we look towards West Africa. What we're seeing in Brazzaville, 34-degree highs. No surprises there. Very, very similar to the conditions we have been seeing very, very often now. This is where I'm going to leave it for now. Stay tuned.
We're heading to a future of cars that will drive themselves, and a place where robots will be doing some of our chores. But the challenge in Africa is to make sure that everyone is part of this new world.
To be behind with technology, it is a challenge for us as offenders.
There are many initiatives to ensure that Africans are truly connected.
We're now giving more access and internet to now the end users.
On Network, we have information on Africa's technology landscape, possibilities for the future, and some great African innovations. That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time.
According to the World Health Organization, the number of people who are obese doubled between 1980 and 2008. Furthermore, 35% of adults over the age of 20 are obese. More than 2 in 3 adults are considered to be overweight or obese. More than 1 in 3 adults are considered to be obese. More than 1 in 20 adults are considered to have extreme obesity. Furthermore, 35% of adults over the age of 20 are obese. In 2010, overweight and obesity were estimated to cause 3.4 million deaths, Lancet reports in 2013. South Africa has the highest overweight and obesity rate in sub-Saharan Africa, with up to 70% of women and a third of men being classified as overweight or obese. A staggering 40% of women in our country are obese, according to the Heart and Stroke Foundation. The bulk of our population used to be physically active, particularly in 1970 to 1999, and ate a diet high in fiber and indigenous vegetables, low in animal protein and refined carbs. However, due to increased urbanization, people are adopting a more westernized diet, high in unhealthy fats, sugar, and salt. Greater disposable income and a faster-paced lifestyle have resulted in people consuming more fast foods and convenient foods, according to the European Association for the Study of Obesity. The Department of Health realizes the seriousness of the obesity crisis and has included this in their National Non-Communicable Diseases Strategic Goals to assist with the obesity problem and increase physical activity by 10% by 2020, reduce the consumption of alcohol by 20% by 2020, reduce the percentage of people who are obese and overweight by 10% by 2020. Obesity has a significant impact on health and well-being. It may also burden a person's workplace abilities. Workers who are obese may need longer rest breaks to return to their initial state of muscle function. 2.6 million people die each year as a result of being overweight or obese, according to the World Health Organization.
This situation demands urgent strategic action encompassing a wide range of sectors, including those responsible for food and beverage production, manufacturing, marketing, and retail.
Obesity has major implications for the healthcare systems in South Africa as they are faced with increasing demands of care for health conditions related to obesity, overweight such as diabetes mellitus, osteoarthritis, cancers, and major cardiovascular diseases. There is no single cause of all overweight and obesity. There is no single approach to treating or preventing it. Treatments may include a mix of behavioral diet, exercise, and sometimes weight loss drugs. In some cases of extreme obesity, weight loss surgery may be an option.
A very good afternoon. You're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon. You're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon only on the SABC News channel.
It's 10:00 hours Central Africa time on this Thursday, the 18th of February 2016. This is Newsroom on SABC News, Channel 404. Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome as we broadcast live from our Open Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Preston. We'll be with you until 12 o'clock. You have to stay with us as we broadcast live from our Open Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. Also, we're streaming live on YouTube with the entire show now available on our YouTube channel. Question of the day. We're asking you, how can safety in mines be improved? How can safety in mines be enhanced? Let me know on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at all your headlines. Rescue operations at the Lily Gold Mine have stopped. The President to respond to the debate on his State of the Nation address today. And Ugandans head to the polls. Now those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front. Very good morning to you.
Elvis, good morning and thank you very much. Quite a lot happening on the sports front, both on the track as well as on the field. This is what's coming up in a few minutes' time. Free State Stars cause more consternation for Pirates as they beat the Buccaneers 1-0 in Global Park. And in the UEFA Champions League, Ronaldo hits the mark as Real Madrid get an away win at Roma.
And Ronaldo hits it! Deflected in!
Superstar Genzebe Dibaba is back in the limelight, smashing the indoor mile record by an amazing 4 seconds in Stockholm.
4:13.32. She's destroyed it yet again.
That is exactly what we've got for you in a few minutes' time. Be sure to stick around for that. But back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. He will be back a little bit later, so you have to stay tuned. Top story this hour. The US's Special Envoy to the Great Lakes region of Africa, Tom Pirioli, says that he has full confidence in South Africa's role in the peace process in Burundi. President Jacob Zuma and 4 other African heads of state have been appointed by the African Union to try and find solutions to the Burundi crisis. In an exclusive interview with the SABC, Pirioli says that he hopes to meet the Burundian President Pierre Nkurunziza. He will also visit Tanzania as part of the consultation process. He told the SABC News foreign editor, Sophie Mukwena, that South Africa was better positioned to give guidance in the Burundi crisis, since the country has played a role in bringing peace in the Great Lakes region.
Understand that when we come and support the people in their desire for peace and democratic freedoms in partnership with the African Union and our African partners, that we can be a positive force for the people of the region. I think what you see in DRC among people east, west, north, and south is a real pride in the constitution that the Congolese people helped to forge, a pride in a peace process that, while not perfect, there continue to be armed groups in the east, has largely brought in an era of stability and some economic growth. And I think there's a real desire not to see that turned backwards, and there's a fear that efforts to change or break the Constitution, to extend stays in power, risks all of that progress that's been made. And I think that's in part because people have looked at the situation in Burundi and seen a situation in which 10 years of tremendous courage by the people of Burundi to build a post-conflict society with a lot of ethnic reconciliation and political reconciliation that have been led by civil society and faith groups and others, again, with places like South Africa being great partners. All this work that had been done to put these divisions behind, and then efforts to break the Constitution in Arusha and risk all of that, was not what the people wanted. And I think they're looking for a way to get back to where the country was a year ago, where we were talking about that as a success story, talking about investing in Burundi instead of issues of sanctions and bankruptcy in the government. So it's a serious moment for the region, and one in which we continue to believe that there's great hope. This is where Tanzania, as the chairs of the EAC, South Africa as long-term partners in that process, can be a significant part of pushing it. And that's better than this being a U.S.-led initiative. But we've also learned from our past that we don't want to be in a situation where we haven't done enough when we're on the verge of mass violence or atrocities. We've learned that lesson as well. And I think what we see in Burundi so far is already a tremendous amount of human destruction and economic destruction. We have not seen the conflict take on a fully ethnic component, and I think that's in part because the AU and the U.S. and others have been watching that vigilantly.
And now for analysis on the story, we are now joined by our African analyst, Isa Como. Mr. Como, very good morning to you and welcome.
Morning to you.
Firstly, what do you make of the role of the U.S. envoy to Burundi, trying to broker a peace deal there?
Well, the role of the U.S. ambassador actually shows that the U.S. is taking over the mediatory or control of the situation away from the AU. And another thing, we find that the role of the Great Lakes states under the chairmanship of Museveni has been pushed on the side, whereby we've got a special team now which has been selected by the AU, which is made up of presidents of different countries, AU countries, neutral countries. And then they've brought in our President Zuma, who's a very important player in the peace deal.
Why so much focus and interest on Burundi?
Well, the focus on Burundi is there because, as the gentleman said, that they want to avoid they want to avoid a situation as happened in Rwanda and as happened in Burundi too. That's a very volatile area. And number two, they want to actually sort of make sure that that the big nations will not be criticized for sitting down when the situation, when the house was burning. So they see that it's best for them to get involved from the word go.
Burundi's neighbors, Rwanda, was fingered for interference. Do you think that Rwanda is interfering in that country's affairs?
Rwanda is definitely interfering. In fact, yesterday I actually sort of had interviewed the Minister of Communications of Burundi, Honorable Karenga Ramadani. And I asked them about that and what evidence they had. They said that, well, they've got evidence is this, that some of the insurgents whom they actually sort of arrested, they actually sort of testified that they were trained in Burundi and they were actually recruited from the refugee camps. And that has been certified by some NGOs like Human Rights Watch. Yeah, and again, they've actually also sort of caught agents, Burundi and Rwandans, who were actually sort of controlling the thing in Burundi. And these were actually presented to the initial United Nations mission which was there. And that was the evidence which actually sort of made the UN itself to tone down its voice on actually saying that you've got to get the troops in and actually giving an ultimatum. Whereas now things are going that they're trying to work out sort of a political solution to the problem.
Pierre Nkurunziza was also fingered by the interview we just heard there from the envoy, special envoy, the US envoy there, indicating that the way he changed the constitution led to the violence. Was there anything wrong, though, with the way the President Nkurunziza changed the constitution?
No, that's the thing which I actually sort of put forward to the minister and also other people. Now, the thing is this, that it depends how you interpret the constitution. The Burundian government, they actually say that the whole thing went to the Constitutional Court. And in the Constitutional Court, they actually won the case. And again, the thing went to the East African Court of Appeal, where the East African Court of Appeal upheld the findings of the Constitutional Court. They say it's not a matter of changing the Constitution. It's a matter of interpreting the Constitution. They say that I think Article 99 of the Constitution clearly states that the president of the country will be actually selected by popular suffrage of the people. Yeah, and again it says that that president will not have more than 2 continuous terms. Now they point out that the first term of Nkurunziza, as they call the first term, it was not a term which was actually specified by the Constitution, which says that it will be chosen by the people. So that the presidency of Nkurunziza was by Parliament. Yeah. And so I say that that does not qualify. Now, again, other people are pointing out to the South African situation. If you look at President Thabo Mbeki, he has had 3 terms of presidency. And that's, the Constitution says that the South African presidents only got to have 2 terms. But nobody in South Africa actually said that Thabo Mbeki changed the Constitution.
So it's all about interpretation.
It's an interpretation. That thing of changing the Constitution, is, they say it's a very dangerous thing. And I tend to agree with that. Yeah.
Tom Priello, he also expressed confidence in President Jacob Zuma and the 4 other heads of state that's been appointed to solve or to look for, to find a solution in Burundi. Do you share the same sentiment?
Oh, yes. President Zuma basically has done a lot of work in peacekeeping. I mean to say that he brought the troubles in KZN to an end. People have forgotten about that. And the Burundian trouble. With the Burundian trouble, there was a very big problem, as I always keep on repeating, that the CNDD, FDD, and the FNL, they were not part of the peace talks.
The Arusha Accords, yeah?
Yeah. And with those agreements, in fact, those agreements are what went and formed the Constitution. And they were not party to that. Now, President Zuma went, appealed to them, and actually got them on board. And that's why, again, you find that when they say that there are political reconciliation, in fact, most of the political reconciliation, it was not even by the parties which were in Arusha. It was by the warring parties, the CNDD. They've actually climbed down. We could actually look at the internal settlement of Zimbabwe between Muzorewa and Smith. The warring parties refused to accept them, and they had to start afresh. But those guys, they just climbed on board and they moved on. So basically, that was Zuma's work.
Mr. Komo, as usual, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
That was Issa Komo, our African analyst, giving us the inside of Burundi. Let's move on now back home here. The rescue operation at the Lily Gold Mine in Mpumalanga has been stopped for at least 2 weeks. Further rockfalls over the weekend have closed the route used by rescue teams. New equipment that will be used to drill another opening arrives today. Our reporter Sibongile Mkani Mpolweni now joins us from our Nelspruit studios to give us an update. Sibongile, very good morning to you. Please help us understand as to why the rescue operations have been stopped for this long.
Good morning, Elvis. The rescue operation has been stopped for 2 weeks simply because, if you remember, during the weekend there was more rockfall at the mine, and that rockfall, that debris and soil, closed an exit point, an escape route of the mine. So now there's only one entry, which is also used as an exit at the mine. Now the mine managers and AMCO explained to us yesterday that according to the mine laws, you are not allowed to go underground with only one entry or exit point, as something could happen at the mine, and that one entry point could be closed, and then you'll have another disaster where people are stuck underground. So the reason they've stopped now the rescue is because of that. They've secured what they say is a state-of-the-art machinery, which is going to be used to drill underground for a second exit point. So that's why the operations have been halted. They're saying that this machine is big enough and it will do this job, but they need about 2 weeks' time in order for them to drill this opening and to remove the rocks.
What about the family members? Are they still hopeful about their loved ones being rescued alive?
Yes, family members are still hopeful. They haven't lost hope. They are praying, even though they're saying that they understand that time has lapsed. It's 13 days today. They understand that the conditions underground, as explained to them, that it's not as the same above. It's difficult there. It's dark. It's humid. It's actually hot. So they understand that, but they're saying that God, they are pinning their hopes on God. They are praying for a positive result.
You are going back to the mine now tomorrow. What can we expect tomorrow, you think? Any hope there?
What is happening today is that this machinery that will drill is on its way to the mine. We understand that it should be there by this afternoon, and then tomorrow morning the drilling will start and right throughout the weekend. And then by next week they say they would get back to us once that team which will be doing the drilling has assessed the situation, and they can tell us how far they've drilled down and when then the rescue will take place. They're saying that they are estimating 2 weeks, but it could be 3 weeks or it could be less, but nothing less than 2 weeks. So tomorrow the drilling will resume at the mine. Another thing, Elvis, families have indicated and have asked the mine, as well as the union and the minister, Minister Zwane, who was there last night, that even though the rescue operations have been halted again, can they stay on the mine? Because of their African beliefs, they feel that they need to be closer to their loved ones who are underground, and that connection maybe might lift the spirits of those underground to fight more, to hang in there so that they are rescued alive. They are saying that they are singing, and they believe that their singing and prayers are being heard underground by those 3 miners, and that will give them hope. So they don't want to leave the mine premises. They want to sleep there. There are tents there where they are catered for. They are sleeping there in the open at the tents. So they're saying that they'll be staying there for the duration of the 2 weeks while the drilling takes place until the operation of the rescue resumes.
Sibongile, thank you so much for that update. That was our reporter in Nelspruit in our studios there, Sibongile Mkani Mpolweni, joining us there. Now, Bosch Group, as you know, announced it's coming into the mining sector in South Africa, and it's going to look into mining in Africa. Now, remember that we're asking you the question around mine safety as well as rehabilitation. Now, Bosch, the company, is aiming to introduce new innovations that would help in mining companies optimizing their productivity due to security, safety, and innovative products. This will also help with job creation. Now, to tell us more about this, we joined in studio by Michael Kloss. He's the CEO of Bosch Southern Africa. A very good morning to you, Michael, and welcome.
Good morning to you, Elvis.
Guten Tag.
Guten Tag, yeah.
There we go.
Very well, yeah.
Now, firstly, what if you think about South Africa or Bosch coming into South Africa, what made you make that decision to come back into the country as a mining operation?
Yes, look, Bosch has never been left South Africa. We are here in South Africa since 1906 with some partners, so more than 100 years already. Yes. We have a manufacturing plant in Northwest Brits where we produce automotive components for the local automotive producers. And we have our Africa headquarter in Midrand, where we headquarter our Africa strategy, which we have in place since last year, and which has the aim to grow strongly in the whole continent from out South Africa. We are developing right now different other locations. We have 10 countries on our list, which we want to focus first. And yes, we have never left the country.
But is the mining sector a first for you?
Mining definitely is important for Africa. You know, the world's resources, 30% of the world resources in mining and minerals are hidden in African continent, in African soils. And we, of course, want to make a part of this. Bosch is not really a mining company, and it will also not be.
That's why I was wondering.
Yeah, you may say you know Bosch from gardening tools or from power tools or from our kitchen equipment.
I've got a Bosch drilling machine,
That's very good. A blue one or a green one?
A blue one.
A blue one. This is the professional one, yeah. That's actually the thing with Bosch. We are big. Maybe I can unpack Bosch for you a little bit. Last year, preliminary figures, we made 70 billion euros, so this is huge worldwide, with more or less 375,000 colleagues around the globe, 150 countries where we are in. And we are organized in business sectors. It starts with automotive, which is our biggest. We call it mobility solutions. We have energy and building, which is using, for example, high efficiency energy generating machines. We have the power tools, as you said, in our business sector of consumer goods. And last but not least, we have industrial goods, where we use to produce packaging machines. And one important in this is our field of security systems. Security systems we can use perfectly into mines.
Yes.
If you allow me a journey with you into the mine, if you enter a mine, you will first come to a fence and a gate. The fence needs to be secured. We have fantastic technology for it. We have high-resolution cameras that work days and night with some intelligence behind it. So if an intruder tries to climb the fence, the camera automatically will recognize this, will send an alarm to the operational security manager and get this person tracked. We have the entrance control, which allows that only the person who should be at the place can enter the place. It's also not only security, but also safety, because you want to have only people in critical areas.
So it's all about security, it's about power tools, it's about assisting the industry, the mining industry in that sector. Is that correct?
Definitely. But it's not only power tools, it's also energy. You know, we learned 30% of the operating costs of a mine are energy costs. Energy is a problem in Africa sometimes, suddenly energy in forms of electricity. Our division can help to reduce your energy consumption. So we have
Is that alternative green energy that you use?
Also, this is a solution. We, for example, our Indian colleagues right now equipped an airport with 12 megawatt of photovoltaic. So this during daylight, this airport is independent from the grid, releases the energy to others who can use it. During the night, of course, we have to come back to the grid. But it's not only this, it's also about efficiency. When you talk about Bosch, you will hear about Bosch as safety, energy efficiency and reliability. Energy efficiency is very important to reduce the consumption.
Let's look at job creation. What sort of numbers are we looking at?
In Africa, we are growing, definitely. For the time being, relatively slow numbers, because we will not introduce right now manufacturing. First comes sales. If we have a decent volume of sales, we then can consider also to bring assembly into the countries. But definitely we are growing, and we are growing right now also in South Africa.
Thank you so much for your time, Michael, and joining us here in studio. And all the best of luck with your operations in the mining sector in South Africa and in Africa.
Thanks a lot.
That was Michael Klaus, the CEO of Bosch Southern Africa, joining us. And as you know, our theme for this week, or for today rather, is focusing on mining safety and also job creation and rehabilitation of mines. And that is what Bosch can bring to the country in terms of looking at efficiency in the industry. Now, Ugandans vote today in what is expected to be a tense election for President Yoweri Museveni, who is seeking another term in office after ruling for 30 years. He faces two main challenges: long-time opposition leader Kizza Besigye and the former Prime Minister Amama Mbabazi. SABC's correspondent in Uganda is Julius Mungwabwa. A very good morning to you, Julius, and welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Julius, I know that we have a slight delay there, but can you tell us, has the voting begun?
I'm very sorry I didn't hear that very well, but let me give you a brief of live on ground. This morning, many Ugandans woke up to go and cast their ballots, but something that has been unfortunate has been reported from a number of polling stations is that many people say voting materials are delayed. People stand in the queues, but they couldn't do much. The country's election, they have not yet supplied the voting materials. I still receive phone calls from people in different polling stations who tell me they've been in the queue for hours, but up to now they haven't had a chance. Actually, people have chosen to quit. Possibly by the end of the day, everyone would have had a chance to vote.
Well, Julius, we get a very bad line, but if you can just tell us briefly, should we expect any disruptions with some of the violence that happened in the run-up to the elections?
Talking about violence, I cannot say that we should expect violence or not, but when you look back at the campaigns, they were peaceful until Monday when our opposition politician, Dr. Caesar, basically was disrupted by the police. Briefly detained and later released, and then someone had to be killed. Someone died during the scuffle when police fired tear gas, and then if such a spirit enters into today, then possibly violence will take over. But as we speak, it's been largely peaceful since morning, apart from people who claim they have not had a chance to vote yet.
That's our correspondent, Julius Mugambwa, in Uganda. Now, as you can hear, the sound quality is not too good, so we do apologize for that, and we'll see if we can get maybe a pre-recording of the discussion that we had to see if we can clear it up, that sound, so you can actually hear what he's saying. But right now, we'll take a short break and cross over to Kendall Makamate. In fact, we're going there straight away to Kendall with your sport news.
Thank you very much, Elvis. I've been very antsy waiting to do the sport for everyone at 10:20. Good morning. Welcome to you all. It's sports time. Now, top of our stories is Free State Stars beat Orlando Pirates 1-0 in the only upset premiership match played last night at Global Park. The first chance at goal went to Free State Stars, forcing Ayanda Kaba to clear from the line. Then Tamsang Gabuza failed to beat Stars keeper Dauda Diakite in the 20th minute. The Free State side continued to pile on the pressure early in the second half, with Nkosi beating Patrick Pungwayo, but his shot went across the face of goal. Yalakoto's best chance of the match came in the 64th minute, and finally Stars found the back of the net in the 80th minute and their visitors held on for maximum points. Moving on to other sporting stories, and specifically staying with football, Zinedine Zidane is off to a flying start as a coach in the big leagues, as in his first outing as a Champions League boss, his side, Real Madrid, came back 2 goals to the good in their last 16 tie with AS Roma, as Julian Draxler powered Wolfsburg to a 3-2 win in a thriller against Ghent. Here are the highlights.
If you'll see Edin Dzeko at some point to try and change the way they attack. Flag stays down here. It's Ronaldo against Florenzi, and Ronaldo hits it! Deflected in, but it's Cristiano Ronaldo's goal! Hesse still going. He's running a long way, and he's scoring a brilliant goal!
Draxler has been on the periphery for much of the first half. It's back with Draxler. It's 1-0 to Wolfsburg. In at the start and the finish of the move. Here's Draxler once more. Draxler to make it 2, which he does so in some style, which makes it doubly difficult for Ghent in Germany. It's a terrific ball in. It is a magnificent goal. Fantastically taken by Max Kruse. He's ignored the run of De Jagra. Casteels is beaten. Sven Kuhns gets his reward. Saev. Koulibaly's got another one. 2-3, they dare to hope.
Now, moving from the outdoor field to indoors, with a track record of successfully hosting major sporting events, South Africa will host another major event. This time, Joburg will play host to the Futsal Africa Cup of Nations tournament in April. The 8-nation tournament will be staged at 3 different venues around the city.
An inter-provincial tournament is currently underway in Soweto. The main purpose is to select a national team to represent South Africa in the Futsal Africa Cup of Nations. As hosts, South Africa, as well as the highest-ranked side in Africa, Egypt, did not have to qualify. Another 6 countries will take part, including North African giants Libya, Morocco and Tunisia. But the sport is still new on the African continent compared to the rest of the world.
We are late than another confederation like Europe, like South America, but we try to go fast than the football classic, because from a long time we concentrate our effort in the classic football in all the categories.
This is a specialized kind of football played indoors by teams comprising 5 players a side.
A lot of skill is involved. You've got to be very fit because you can't duck on the field. It's only 5 players. And you've got to move off the ball very, very quickly. So it's a very important game for the development of the 11-a-side game. Now, if you look at countries like Brazil, Argentina, Spain, Italy, all of those countries have been playing futsal for over 50 years.
In the opening match of the tournament, South Africa will face neighbors Mozambique.
Between Mozambique and South Africa, we have to fight because I don't know the South African national team, but I think that they have good players. That's why we have to play very hard.
The top 3 finishers will automatically qualify for this year's World Cup in Colombia. Sfiso Ramara, SABC News, Soweto.
Now, Team Dimension Data's Edvald Boasson-Hagen is the new leader of the 2016 Tour of Oman. Boasson-Hagen won today's second stage of 162 kilometers to take the overall lead in the Tour. Now, it was all down to the collective hard work of the South African cycling team that saw Boasson-Hagen fend off the challenges of Italy's Vincenzo Nibali and Greg van Avermaet of Belgium. Boasson-Hagen emerged fastest up the short, steep climb to the finish, gaining the overall leader's red jersey. 4 seconds better than Nibali and 6 seconds faster than van Avermaet. The Tour of Oman consists of 6 stages and is set to end on Sunday. Dimension Data will be hoping for more success after Mark Cavendish won the Tour of Qatar last week. Now, former Sharks and Springbok number 8 Ryan Kankowski could make his return to the Springbok Sevens as early as next month. Kankowski joined the Blitzboks on a full-time basis earlier this month after a lengthy stint in Japan and has been practicing with the squad at their base at the Stellenbosch Academy for Sport.
A decade after playing for the Springbok Sevens and representing South Africa at the Commonwealth Games in Melbourne, Ryan Kankowski's career has almost completed the full circle. After playing the last of his 20 test matches for the Springboks in 2012, he has been featuring in Super Rugby for the Sharks and the Toyota Shuttles in Japan. Now back as a full-time contracted Sevens player, Kankowski has to make major adjustments to come to terms with the modern-day Sevens game.
It's been massive, you know, to come from Sevens into 15s and then over 10 years, you know, to kind of those Sevens habits to be drilled out of you. And just slot back in is quite tough, but you know, it's a brilliant coaching staff here and they're really looking after me, really helping me try and find my feet again and just loving the opportunity to be here.
In addition to Kankowski, Springbok Sevens coach Neil Powell will also have at his disposal the services of Branko Dupree, Cecil Africa, Justin Gedald and Carl Brown, who have all recovered from injuries. The 4 are vastly experienced players and will make a massive contribution to the team, while Powell also has time to get Kankowski up to speed with the demands of the Sevens circuit.
He's already showed a great attitude towards the system. I think he's been working really hard the last 2 weeks on his conditioning and fitness to make sure that he's ready to for the intensity that Sevens will throw at him. And yeah, he's a quick learner. He's very experienced in 15s and in Sevens. He's played Sevens before. And I think he's fitting in nicely with the culture as well. So still a work in process, still not at the point that we want him to be. But again, we still got 2.5 weeks to work with him, and he's a quick learner. So I'm really happy that he will be ready when we get to Vegas in a week and a half's time.
The return of Branko Dupree, who has an excellent record in Las Vegas, will also make a huge difference to the team. Dupree last played for the Blitzboks in May 2015, and the long injury has forced him to prove himself all over again.
For me, it's hard work and just to go out and give it to all again. And it all starts here in camp. So for me, I'm just going to work hard and to be part of the team again.
Powell will name his 12 for Vegas and Vancouver next week.
And finally, it's not only the Proteas men's cricket side that's preparing for a T20 series against England. The national women's side will also be playing the English and have one eye on the upcoming ICC T20 World Cup event to be held in India in March. And for the first time ever, the T20s on Friday and Sunday will be played as televised joint double headers with the Proteas men's matches.
They lost the recent one-day series against England 2-1, but got a lot of confidence by beating England for the first time. Their development has been aided by the return of captain Mignon du Preez, Marizanne Kapp, Dane van Niekerk and Shabnim Ismail from strong international competition.
We had 4 players that actually played in the Big Bash in Australia now. I think the experience that they brought with them actually lifted the entire squad, and you can see the professionalism now that is starting to creep into the squad. The way the girls are competing and the way they prepare, everything is just lifted.
After the series against England, the team will play 3 one-dayers and 3 T20s against the West Indies before the World Cup starts in March.
Playing against England before going to the World Cup, we know they've been in the finals and have won it before, so it's definitely going to be a very strong competitive series. But we're really looking forward to it. I think that it gives us a wonderful opportunity to express ourselves and to see where we're at. And the only way you can get better is playing against the best in the world. So, but definitely this time around, going to the World Cup with our aims of bringing the World Cup trophy home.
The Proteas women team play England in Paarl on Thursday, then at Newlands on Friday, with the final match at the Wanderers on Sunday. Craig Murray, SABC News, Cape Town.
That's where we leave it with the sport. We take a short break. When we come back, Elvis President standing by with more news and analysis.
For victory requires intense effort and teamwork. When you get to it, there is no turning back, because all eyes are on you. When it's action time, nothing should stand in your way. Sports Live tackles and analyzes all the sport action. This is the home of all your sport news, updates and more. Sports Live weekdays at 8:30 p.m.
Welcome back. Now, as you know, the focus this morning is on mining rehabilitation and safety in mining, and we're also asking you that question: how can safety in South African mines be enhanced? I want to know what's on your mind on the Facebook page, on the Twitter handle as well. Now, mining companies are required by law to have in place abatement plans in order to deal with the large off-the-road tires that they do have. Now, despite this requirement, there was no solution to deal with the problem, and few mining companies were unable to comply. But in 2013, Recycling and Economic Development Initiative of South Africa came to their rescue. That is REDISA. Now, 70% of the country's waste tires are being recycled. Joining us in studio today is REDISA's Stacey Davison. Stacey, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Morning, Elvis.
First and foremostly, when you announced these plans for REDISA, what was your thoughts at first? Was it going to happen?
Absolutely. We always knew it was going to happen. There isn't a choice. We don't actually have a choice. We have a huge waste problem in the country, and we need to look at innovative ways to utilize our waste and convert them into commodities, and that's really what REDISA is all about. That's at the heart of what we do.
Now, when you started focusing on mining tires and mining waste, how severe is the problem within the mining industry?
Well, let me just contextualize things for you. Firstly, in 2009, legislation was introduced for the mining sector or stockpile owners to in fact register their waste tire stockpiles, because mines have been operating, but there's been no way of disposing these huge tires. They weigh up to between 2 and 4 tons each. So it's not exactly something you can pop onto a bucky and drive off somewhere and go dump. These stockpiles were required to have abatement plans, and these abatement plans are quite complex because you need to explain how you're actually going to remediate the tire, what you're going to recycle, and what it will end up being. Is it going to be a brick, or is it just going to be burnt and cause further harm? So those abatement plans needed to be completed. In 2012, Redisa was, of course, our plan was published. And so from that point onwards, there was a mechanism created to, in fact, deal with the new waste tires that were arising. But there was no capability able to deal with the waste tires. These are huge tires. They need to be downsized before they can be introduced into existing recycling plants.
What are you using it for when you recycle them?
Well, recycled rubber, or rubber crumbs specifically, has a range of applications across homes, the ceiling joints of your doors and your fridges, your mats, Van Dyke carpets, for example, utilize recycled rubber to be able to make the linings of the AstroTurf. There are conveyor belts that are made with ceiling joints, rubber handles on equipment. There's a range of applications, but I think the exciting ones for us are those that look at road resurfacing, because it extends the life cycle of the road and, of course, reduces maintenance costs on the road. And that's what we're wanting to explore. How can we actually introduce rubber into the asphalt industry?
Now that you mention it, I'm just thinking about all the possibilities that's available. But you also have a waste beneficiation project. Tell us about that.
Correct. So waste beneficiation is the business established through Redisa's incubation program or business development program that deals specifically with the OTR tire or the off-the-road tire, these huge tires. You cannot transport these tires from mines because some of them have hundreds of them. And to be able to transport them will just be costly to move them around the country. So we needed to find technology that is in fact able to go to the mines, downsize them, and then take them off. And that's exactly what waste beneficiation looks to do. Redisa's challenge is that as an NPC, we need to create this recycling industry that can deal with these tires, but we cannot own those businesses. So what we've done is, through our incubation program, is looked at a model where we can develop a business, develop an entrepreneur, and ensure that these businesses are now owned by previously disadvantaged individuals. At the heart of it is empowerment. We believe in black economic empowerment, and we also believe that with the legacy of apartheid, the vast majority of previously disadvantaged people don't have access to equity. So we needed to look at a way to be able to incubate these businesses, establish the business, and then marry it and transfer that ownership to an entrepreneur that's successful at meeting with all of the milestones as well as the performance requirements in the program. And waste beneficiation is one of those businesses.
Job creation in this country is crucial, and this is what you're trying to seek with this particular program. How far has it gone, or how successful has it been?
Well, in South Africa to date, we've created 3,057 jobs in the past 3 years. Waste beneficiation specifically has about 9 employees, and by the end of February, they're looking to commission at a mine in Limpopo now in March, and there'll be a launch around that. And they're looking to double that workforce from 8 to 16 by the end of March. So we're very excited. We believe that this is the way to go. We need to drive economic growth. We need to create the jobs. And the way to do that is to create new industries and new business sectors that actually start dealing with waste, but now turn that waste into a commodity.
People that want to get involved with Redisa and maybe become an entrepreneur in recycling, how do they do that?
Well, they can do that by contacting us directly on our website at www.redisa.org.za. We have various registration platforms for various interests, whether it be to transport or whether it be to recycle. They're able to engage the process that way, and through that registration process, we then can start engaging them and looking to marry them to the opportunities that are available and that do come up.
Stacey, thank you so much for coming in and joining us in studio.
Thank you very much, Elvis.
Now, that was Stacey Davidson from Redisa, and you can actually go on site, online, on redisa.co.za and see what they got to offer for you. If you want to become an entrepreneur, there's a way to go. Recycle. That is the way to go. Question of the day, we're asking you, how can safety in our mines be enhanced? Let me know on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. Let's now take a look at what is happening on our Facebook page this hour in South Africa. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Baleka Mbete, believes that she has been doing a great job in Parliament. This is despite criticism from opposition ranks. Then the leading challenger to Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni said on Tuesday that he had no confidence that elections this week would be free or fair, as all the major candidates held huge rallies in the capital Kampala to mark the end of the campaign. Ugandans will be heading to the polls throughout the day today. and at least 5 people were killed in the administrative heart of Turkey's capital, Ankara, yesterday when a vehicle strapped with explosive detonated as military buses passed near the Armed Forces headquarters, Parliament and government buildings. Now, for more of these stories, you can go to our Facebook page, just search for Newsroom and you'll find us there. Now, the business community says it's waiting for the Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan's budget speech in a week's time, on the 24th of February, that'll be, to get clarity on what direction government is taking on the economy. Now, this comes after business showed little reaction to President Jacob Zuma's State of the Nation address to a joint sitting of Parliament. Now, to unpack this, we are joined in studio by Professor Raymond Parsons of the Northwest University School of Business and Governance. As always, Professor, welcome.
Good morning.
All eyes is on the budget speech next week. Your thoughts first and foremostly on SONA, and how did that go off?
Well, I think we must see SONA and the budget as a package. And what one hopes at the end of the day is that, in fact, the total will be greater than the sum of the parts. Quite clearly, the SONA set the scene, set the table, as it were, for the budget. And I think we know what the socio-economic challenges are, that we're facing some critical challenges in the South African economy. And therefore, following on the SONA, the Minister of Finance really has to protect 2 things. Firstly, he's got to protect our growth prospects. That's very important for those who want jobs, those who want to invest, want to know what are our growth prospects for the future. Secondly, he's got to protect our investment rating, because without a good investment rating, you can't achieve certain other things. So in this very tough budget that he now faces, next week, what the Minister of Finance has to do is to decide in his budget how the pain of adjusting to these new economic realities is going to be spread over the different stakeholders in South Africa. That's the challenge he faces when he has to decide about government spending, about government borrowing, about the tax mix. Out of that, you've got to send out a message that we are going to get our financial and economic house in order. So that is really the overarching challenge that is now faced by the Minister of Finance against the background of the SONA message.
So, fine balancing act, and the role of rebuilding trust and confidence, will that play part and parcel of what he's got to say next week?
I think it's very important. We mustn't purely debate the budget in terms of its technicalities, in terms of key ratios, but not the end of the story. Out of those numbers has got to come a message of credibility and indeed confidence that this is where we have a turning point. And although there's no quick fix, we are now going to turn the economy around and look forward to much better times. But there will be some tough decisions, and it's going to be a tough year.
Now, to what extent did SONA set the scene for the budget next week in relation to the economic challenges such as the global, domestic and economic factors that we need to face, policy direction, as well as the National Development Plan to enhance policy certainty or certainty for our investors and the international markets?
Well, I think the SONA went further than some people are prepared or perhaps prepared to recognize, in the sense that certain markers were put down on those issues, and in particular the issue of policy certainty. The President came back from Davos saying that was the main message I gave investors, and I assured them there would be policy certainty. So we need to tick some of the boxes, and he did tick some of the boxes. But there's quite a bit of unfinished business, and that's got to be picked up not only in the budget, but by the Cabinet as a whole. I just want to add, as important as the budget is, we can't put all the solutions on the shoulders of the Minister of Finance.
Now, that's my next question, because there was a series of meetings between business and government and interaction between the two on the economy and the budget. How important is those type of dialogues?
Well, Elvis, I think, let me put it to you this way. If you are pro-growth, pro-job creation, pro-investment, you can't be anti-business. You've got to have cooperation with the business community. Now, there's been a gap there. The issues of trust and confidence have bedeviled us for some time. So I think what you're seeing around Davos, around the SONA, and around the budget is a renewed effort to forge a much better relationship between government and the decision makers in the private sector whose confidence you want to win and whose decisions about investment and job creation you want to encourage. So I think this is important because they came up with an 8-point plan, which is a very pragmatic, sensible thing. Some of those ideas were incorporated in the sonar. Hopefully some will also be reflected in the budget. There's some key outstanding issues. So I think in terms of the relationship, the important relationship between government and business, we're in a more constructive process. And I'm hoping in future it'll be able to build on that in the interests of our economy as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Big ticket items that will be discussed in the budget speech. What do you think it'll be, especially looking at the outlook for economic growth and tax revenues? There's also fiscal discipline, how the budget will be spent by government on infrastructure, such as shifting the legislative capital from Cape Town to Pretoria, perhaps. And the big one, financing and restructuring the SOEs.
Well, that's a formidable list, of course, quite a formidable agenda for the Minister of Finance. Point of departure has to be his view on our growth prospects. And as we've downgraded our forecasts for growth this year and next, so it affects the budget, it affects the tax revenues, and indeed so many of the ratios in the budget are expressed in terms of the gross domestic product that even arithmetically some of those numbers will change. So that's the point of departure. He's got a gap to fill. Most important message will be whether he can control government spending, because that is at the root of the problem. If you don't have enough resources, you then have to cut back. So that's the first point. The second would be to borrow less, because quite clearly we don't want to fall into a debt trap. The credit rating agencies are watching those ratios. And of course, we also want to say that in the process of the budget, we're going to take some key decisions on items which appear to be budget draining, such as the financing of certain state-owned enterprises. It's quite clear, for example, that if you take Eskom, that's a drain on the budget. South African Airways, a drain on the budget. So we're looking to the budget to begin to tell us that we're going to do restructuring, that indeed this is not a blank check on behalf of the SOEs.
Just briefly, Professor, final thought?
Well, my final thought, we have to stand back. Given where we are and the challenges we have in South Africa, going beyond the numbers, but embodied in the message have to be two things. Has got to be credibility and certainty. Whether you're the man in the street, a business person, or credit rating agencies, those are the two pillars on which you want to see this budget built.
Professor, as always, thank you so much for your time. That was Professor Raymond Parsons of the Northwest University School of Business and Governance in studio. We'll take a short weather and I'll be back right after that. Welcome back. The Department of Arts and Culture's National South African Culture Observatory announced its first annual national workshop, which will be held in Johannesburg tomorrow. The workshop hopes to bring together thought leaders, researchers, cultural experts, cultural workers, and representatives from the art world to discuss and provide inputs towards the development of a consolidated research agenda and monitoring and evaluation framework for the industry. Now, to tell us more about the workshop, we are joined in studio by Monica Newton, who is the Deputy Director General for Arts and Culture, and we're also joined by Professor Richard Haynes, who is the CEO of the South African Cultural Observatory. Welcome to you, to both of you, and thank you for coming through. Monica, first and foremost, tell us about the workshop. What is it all about?
Well, to take a step back, in 2011, the Department of Arts and Culture released the Mzansi Golden Economy Strategy, which recognized that knowledge and research on the sector was a huge gap. It meant that policy, programs, projects were sort of happening in an a-contextual way. And the Cultural Observatory was one of the key mechanisms proposed to begin to fill that research gap, to do ongoing research, to do ongoing monitoring and evaluation, and most important, to begin to disseminate that information. And the 5-year research agenda is the underpinning framework that will guide the work of the observatory. So it's a critical component of the work that needs to be done, and it's also essential that we hear from the arts sector itself what is important in that agenda as we go forward.
How will it benefit the artists, though?
Well, in essence, it will allow for more targeted approaches to business. It will allow for more understanding and insight into the dynamics of the creative industries. But more than that, it will also provide us with a clear sense of where the opportunities, gaps, and challenges are, so that everybody is aware of what they're getting into when they get into the arts.
Yes, yes. Now, and when we talk about arts, we're talking about all types of arts.
Absolutely, across the entire value chain. Music, performing arts, dance, craft, visual arts, design, the entire gamut.
Does that include only professional artists or informal artists as well?
It has to include both, because our sector is vast. There are people who are in it for profit, there are people who are doing it for social purposes, and essentially if we exclude one at the expense of the other, we then don't get the full picture. So all of the methodologies, all of the tools are designed in such a way that we're able to look at the non-profit elements as well as the profit-bearing elements.
Professor, give us a brief description of how it helps the economy to grow in South Africa through this program.
Well, the knowledge economy and post the knowledge economies, internationally they found that the creative economy is actually an increasingly important part of economic development. And in a number of countries, that's where your big growth has happened over the last decade or so. And the contribution to GDP is also accelerated significantly. For example, Brazil, UK, the creative and cultural industries contribute around about 10% to GDP. So, and in South Africa too, we've been finding that increase in the contribution, and the kinds of jobs that are being created in this creative industry sector are dynamic. And they're transformative. There's been a range of work done in recent years, UNDP, it's the United Nations Development Programme, a range of international agencies which have talked about this developmental aspect of focusing on on cultural activity and cultural economic activity. And if you look at the new Sustainable Development Goals, which have succeeded the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, you find that emphasis on sustainability and the transformative impact that it has, and also allows government to reach those sectors, the informal sectors that often other kinds of business and economic intervention don't generally target or reach as well as they could do.
Monica, when is this workshop taking place?
Tomorrow. And in fact is in the build-up to, in fact, a national conference, which will happen a little bit later. But the most important thing for us is to really consult with industry leaders, notables, academics in the arts, to get their views as to what are the most important research elements that need to go into this 5-year research agenda. So Professor Haynes and his team have a very clear sense of not only what they're delivering for the Department of Arts and Culture, but what they're delivering for the sector as a whole.
Professor, moving forward, that knowledge economy that you're talking about, explaining that to the layman, how would you describe that?
Well, the knowledge economy is essentially, and that's in a sense we've probably even moved beyond the knowledge economy, but it's the growth of application of ITCs, information technologies, in particular the growth of internet, social media. Those have impacted significantly, these new technologies, on how we actually undertake business. And there's been a shift away from the more traditional industries and a shift into service sector industries, but also where information and knowledge becomes quite important and vital, in fact, for the functioning. And some of the biggest value-added aspects come through, knowledge and post-knowledge economy applications.
Well, I needed a lot more time on this interview because I think there's a lot more issues, but they didn't do justice to us to discuss this now. We should have actually done it a little bit later. But unfortunately, we've run out of time. But thank you so much for coming through and joining us in studio. That was the CEO of the South African Cultural Observatory, Professor Richard Haynes, and the Deputy Director General for Arts and Culture, Monica Newton, joining us in studio. Thank you both for joining us. Well, that's where we got to leave it for now. We'll be back just at the top of the hour after this break, so stay tuned.
SABC News. We report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
This week we are taking you around the continent, telling you stories about what makes Africa, Africa.
We now head to the Kenyan coast where we meet a man using needles to fight a growing drug culture.
A recent study revealed that there are 850 drug addicts in Diani alone, with over 220 using injectable drugs such as heroin.
In my community, I've seen a lot of these people suffer.
The Journal, every Saturday at 1:30 on SABC News.
It's 10:00 hours Central Africa time on Thursday, the 18th of February, 2016. As you know, this is Newsroom, and we're broadcasting until 12 o'clock. But Kendall, there's a lot of sport. It's coming up a little bit later, I believe.
Absolutely. I've got a very interesting interview with a superbiker with a difference.
Yes?
This particular superbiker is blonde and is a woman. I'll be chatting to a superbiker. It's one of those things that it's an oddity to find superbikers that are not men, but there's a woman that's actually doing extremely well. But a little bit more about that when you allow me to do the headlines.
Well, that's coming up shortly. But as you know, this is Newsroom, and we're broadcasting live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. As you know, we're also live on YouTube. You can go there and watch the program as we speak. We're asking you a very important question, though, today. How can safety in South African mines be enhanced? That's the question we would like to know from you on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, also on our Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at your headlines. Rescue operations at the Lily mine are stopped. The President is to respond to the debate on his State of the Nation address. And Ugandans head to the polls today. Now that's what's coming up in a short while. But first, before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall about the superbiker and more sports news. Over to you, Kendall.
No, thank you very much, Elvis. Okay, I was getting a little ahead of myself. I'll mention that a little later. Good morning. This is what we have for you in the sports. Free State Stars cause more consternation for Pirates as they beat the Buccaneers 1-0 in Goble Park. And in the UEFA Champions League, Ronaldo hits the mark as Real Madrid get an away win at Roma.
And Ronaldo hits it! Deflected in!
Genzeba Dubaba, superstar, is back in the limelight, smashing the indoor mile record by an amazing 4 seconds in Stockholm.
4:13.32. She's destroyed it yet again.
Now, of course, I'll be chatting more about women and superstar women in the world of sports. I'll be chatting to Janine Davis, the superbiker I was telling you all about a little later in the Sports Bulletin.
Superfly, he'll be back a little bit later. That's Kendall Makamate with your sports news. Top story this hour, though. The rescue operation at the Lily Gold Mine in Mpumalanga has been stopped for at least 2 weeks. Further rockfalls over the weekend have closed the route used by the rescue teams. New equipment that will be used to drill another opening arrives today.
Families of the 3 miners trapped underground will have to wait another 2 weeks before their members could be found. Rock engineers advised it's not safe for rescue teams to go under, as there is only one escape route from underground.
It is state-of-the-art drill machine, which is going to be used to drill a 600mm hole, just the right size to get a person out of the underground in an emergency.
Mineral Resources Minister says the families have been informed.
We have indicated to them that it is not our wish that this operation is going to stop for the next 2 to 3 weeks, but we have to abide by the law so that everybody that goes down is safe.
Union AMCU leader Joseph Matunjwa, who went underground with the rescue teams, explains.
The health and safety laws doesn't allow any underground working to use only one opening. You need to have 2 openings. For instance, when one opening gets damaged, and then you'll be able to rescue people to move out of underground safely so.
Families have opted to remain at the mine until rescue operation resumes. Meanwhile, the mine has ended false speculation about one of its workers committing suicide.
The person that committed suicide does not work for Vantage Goldfields, and he certainly does not work for Lily Mine.
Rock drilling will resume on Friday. Sibongile Mkani-Mpolweni, SABC News, Barberton in Mpumalanga.
Now, President Jacob Zuma will respond to the debate on his State of the Nation address today. The debate has raged in Parliament over the past 2 days, with ANC MPs coming out forcefully in defence of the President.
The ruling party came out fighting to dispel the notion by opposition parties that President Zuma is unfit to lead.
But the electorate not only wants to hear a broken record. They are faced with a global economic crisis and are expecting leaders in Parliament to also demonstrate a stroke of scarce genius and say to the President, what you said to the nation address will not work, and these are the alternative solutions to create jobs, to move millions of South Africans out of poverty, and to reduce the wage gap. But we had nothing of that from this side of the House.
When you were running the city of Johannesburg under separate development in Alexander, you made Alexander a little corner, a dumping site, a refuse site, and the ANC, within a period of 20 years, under a democratic local government, we have changed and we are battling to change Alexander.
Ministers even used their successes in their own portfolios to defend the president's legacy.
If we take the figures for a full 12 months, it shows that the economy created 712,000 more jobs. Most of those jobs came from agriculture, construction, and business services.
But it was not smooth sailing.
In South Africa, I believe that it's time that political leaders from all groups, but also business leaders in South Africa, must come together in a government of national unity to get South Africa through this crisis.
The legislature of this House, contrary to the anticipation of the authors of our Constitution, have been divided into 2 parts or factions. One faction consisting of 2 or 3 parties collaborating with the presiding officers, and another smaller faction strenuously trying to hold the executive to account.
Harsh language among members threatened the good order of proceedings.
Can you withdraw the word rubbish?
House Chair, I will not withdraw the word rubbish because you are talking rubbish.
Then you would leave me with no option than to ask you to leave the House.
The President is due to respond to the debate on Thursday. Ulelani Philip, SABC News, Parliament.
The Johannesburg Roads Agency will hold a media briefing about the resumption of the M1 Bridges and Highways Rehabilitation Project, which commences on the 27th of February. Now, this session will also give feedback on the collapse of a bridge last October on the Grayston off-ramp in Sandton. Viewers, particularly those here in Johannesburg, are urged to take note of communication channels as the project is expected to cause significant traffic disruptions, especially in the Sandton area. We were earlier joined by the Acting Managing Director of Johannesburg Roads Agency, Paul Cow, who explained how the inquiry into the collapse will affect the resumption of the project.
The work has been suspended until the hearings have been concluded by the Department of Labour, which are currently underway. And I think once everything has been cleared, they will then allow the construction to proceed.
Okay, so at the moment, nothing is happening when it comes to the resumption of this bridge. So it's all going to stay, and we've got to wait 6 months until the findings are released into the inquiry. So that's still quite a while.
My understanding is that there's certain sections of the bridge that are allowed to proceed in terms of construction, but that is off the section that had collapsed. So anything that is not related to the scaffolding that collapsed would be allowed to continue.
All right. What are some of the lessons that we've learnt from what happened during this devastating incident?
Obviously, it has emphasized the need to be more cautious around the safety on site, and all the necessary steps to be checked and balances taken to make sure that the safety of the road users as well as the employees or workers on site is taken into account. And this is something that we are currently, as the Johannesburg Roads Agency, ensuring that more diligence is applied in all our works going forward.
Yeah. In terms of appointing service providers, I mean, you know, the reality is obviously Marion Roberts had a great reputation and something went wrong along the lines there. But for future service providers, what is the protocol now?
Well, normal process of procurement allows for due diligence to be done on all procurement appointment of service providers, and this is being applied right through all our appointments that we currently make. And we are going to make sure that all the necessary requirements with regard to health and safety compliance are being taken care of, thoroughly so, to ensure that we avoid the recurrence of what happened at Grayston.
Ugandans vote today in what is expected to be a tense election for President Yoweri Museveni, who was seeking another term in office after ruling for 30 years. He faces two main challenges: the long-term opposition leader Kizza Besigye and the former Prime Minister Amama Mbabazi.
Police say they won't let anyone cause chaos during the election. Over 15,000 police personnel have been deployed across the country.
As we have done in the past, I supported the Electoral Commission, and as we obviously continue to do in this particular, the critical phase where our people are going to the polls.
But Monday's clashes with the opposition left one person dead. A police officer was also injured. Security personnel are already patrolling the streets and will continue through Thursday's vote. But the sight of uniformed men has heightened the fear of the possibility of election violence.
It scares us because whenever we are doing our work and you see all over the security is scattered, it sometimes scares.
The 2016 election has been described by many as a tight contest. Leon Senyange, SABC News, Kampala.
The late former United Nations Secretary General Boutros Ghali attempted to assert an authoritative role in his position, and that is precisely what led to his downfall. In an exclusive interview with SABC News in New York, the former president, Thabo Mbeki, hailed Africa's first UN chief as a political leader who embraced the responsibility to represent the peoples of the world and lamented the loss of an outstanding African. He also had choice words about the role of the Secretary General and on the type of leader the job of leading the United Nations required.
A new social contract at the global level is required.
He was known to speak his mind, a characteristic that often got him into trouble, but a view that this former president believes is much needed in the role of UN Secretary General.
He really kind of had carried the image of what we thought a Secretary General of the United Nations would be, who is somebody who is authoritative, not just a civil servant of the United Nations, but really a political leader with a responsibility to represent the peoples of the world. And therefore a person who would not be not just speaking for the big powers and really represent what would be of value, understood by the people generally as being something that is moral, that is ethical, that serves humanity. He tried to do that.
Mbeki acknowledges that Boutros Ghali's tenure during the international failures of the genocides in Rwanda and the Balkans and the difficulties of an increasingly unstable Somalia pointed also to the collective nature of decision-making at the world body.
I don't know why they would want to delegate problems like that, challenges of that kind, particularly to the Secretary General.
He called for persistence in the reform of the Security Council, agreed that the next UN chief should be a woman, but that the position should be held by a statesperson of the highest esteem.
This position requires an independent-minded statesperson, not a senior civil servant, an independent-thinking statesperson committed to the vision that you would find in the UN Charter, in the Human Rights Charter, and all of these documents that have been agreed globally. You need that so that persons can stand up and say, even if the behavior of a big power, I'm talking in the context of Security Council and UN Charter, if the behavior of a big power is such that that behavior could lead to a threat to international peace, Secretary General must be able to stand up and say that.
UN flags will fly at half-mast while the UN General Assembly pays tribute to the late Boutros Ghali in a special plenary later Thursday. Sherwin Bryceby's SABC News, New York.
Meanwhile, the UN Secretary General has urged world leaders to attend the upcoming signature ceremony of the Paris Climate Change Agreement in April this year in New York. Addressing an informal session of the General Assembly, Ban Ki-moon called the signature ceremony the first opportunity for governments to advance the process that will lead to the implementation and the ratification of the landmark Paris Agreement. At least 55 countries, or 55% of global gas emitters, must ratify the agreement before it can take legal effect.
The agreement reached in Paris was just the beginning, as the UN chief encourages world leaders to return to New York on April 22nd to put the agreement into action.
The participation of heads of state and government will show the world they are determined to move forward as quickly as possible. It will keep the global spotlight firmly focused on climate change and build on the strong political momentum created in Paris. It is important that Paris Agreement enters into force as soon as possible. The cost of inaction becomes clearer every day.
He wants governments to provide an update on the implementation of their national climate plans, to share a roadmap on how they will increase ambition over time, and to provide a timetable for fully ratifying the Paris Agreement in domestic legislation.
Normally when a treaty or agreement is open for signature, Sometimes a member state come and go, and over a period, a long time. Sometimes it may take a decade for any country to sign this agreement. The main purpose of Paris decision is to invite all current 196 parties, states, member states and parties, to come at one place. And our ambition, it may be too much, too ambitious, to sign all 196 parties on one day, and try to enter into ratification process. We don't have time to waste.
Moving from agreement to implementation will be the true test of the Paris Accords' success. Sherman Briceby's SABC News, New York.
Dignity and respect for mine workers was a big theme at this year's mining in Daba, which was held last week. Minister of Mineral Resources, Mosebenzi Zwane, said that workers' needs should be adequately addressed in order for the working environment to be productive. Numerous strikes in the mining industry show that mining companies could be engaging their workers better. Joining us now in studio is the lead in workforce engagement at Deloitte Digital, Joanne Doyle-Wendt, who will tell us how companies can make a difference in their workspace. A very good morning to you, Joanne, and welcome. How can companies make a difference?
So it's the ability to be able to connect directly with the employee. But I think the biggest difference that can be made is being able to engage with the employees so you get real-time feedback. You actually hear the voice of the employees, and to be able to then structure your communication strategies in a different way.
Is there then a suggestion that there's a breakdown of communication between employer and employee?
So I think there is a breakdown of communication between stakeholders. I think that we look for key times in which to engage, and we use traditional means of communication and engagement, and we have seen that actually being unsuccessful. So the ability to engage with an individual, regardless of language or job function or kind of healthcare needs, is really important.
So why are these methods not working? They've been traditional, they've been working all along fine, so why should they change?
Well, first of all, it takes a long time to get the insights and feedback from employees, which means it's generally too late. The world of communication is changing, where it is really a collaborative approach, and the importance of dignity and respect for the workers means that we need to build an element of trust between the workforce and the employer to actually build a culture of productivity and performance.
Now, Deloitte Digital says that you can make a difference. And what is that difference, that solution that you provide?
So the solution that we have developed is a simple mobile solution that connects with even your simplest of feature phones. It connects to each individual, and the magic starts to happen is when we do deep segmentation. So to be able to know what shift the individual's on, language, job function, to be able to survey. So it's bi-directional communication at zero cost to the employee with real-time insights.
Explain that to me, because, if someone has a mobile phone, and especially if it's a normal cell phone, they would think that they would use airtime to communicate with their employer. Does it work that way?
So you do need a positive balance of airtime. However, you do not pay the high data charges. So it is on that simple kind of USSD functionality, but it does give the organization real-time feedback. It allows us to survey employees and then make judgments based on feedback.
And what sort of feedback are you referring to?
So it's actually very interesting. It really depends on the job profile of the individual as well as the job they perform. So for instance, we've seen in our workforce that works below ground is requiring more information around silicosis and TB. Your above ground workers require different healthcare information, could be around mental health or stress.
Now, especially in the mining sector, has some of the mining companies taken up your suggestion to use mobile technology to communicate? We
have a number of clients in the energy and resources sector who have actually using the solution with great results.
Is it an app? Or how
No. It does not sit as an app. It is a Mobi platform and then a USSD string.
What is the success rate thus far?
So it is a voluntary platform. Employees are not forced to join the platform. We've seen success rates of up to 60% of employees voluntarily registering for the platform.
And everybody can use it across the board, not just the mining industry?
No, not just the mining industry. It's very successful in organizations or kind of industries that have large dispersed workforces multiple languages and across various locations.
So a company with 4 or 5 won't really work for them.
No.
Joanne, thank you so much for coming through and joining us.
Thank you.
Right, that was Joanne Doyle went. She told us how companies can make a difference in their workspace. Let's now move over to the Northern Cape. Northern Cape Premier Sylvia Lucas will deliver a keenly watched state of the province today. The province is facing economic hardships on 2 fronts that are the economic backbone of the province. Mines in the province are planning to retrench thousands of workers, while a drought is causing hardship in the agricultural sector. Our reporter Ulrich Hendricks is attending the State of the Province address.
Well, good morning and welcome to Kimberley, Northern Cape. In just a couple of seconds, the Northern Cape Premier Sylvia Lucas will deliver a State of the Province address. Now, this one will be keenly watched because of the economic and social climate that we are in. Jobs are being shed within the mining sector, one of the biggest contributors of the province's GDP. But to talk to us a bit more about the SOPA and the state of readiness is the Speaker of the Northern Cape Legislature, that's Kenny Moimang. Good morning, sir.
Good morning and good morning to the viewers.
Are we ready for the state of the province to be delivered?
Indeed, it is all systems go. We are expecting more than 1,500 attendees from all our 5 regions. We're expecting also traditional leaders, key important stakeholders from across the 3 spheres of government, 3 arms of government. The expectation is that members of the public will also be in attendance, particularly taking into account the fact that this is a very busy year, and therefore the expectation is that we need to intensify our interaction as the legislative sector and the executive with our communities to ensure that they are at the center of whatever we are doing. With me is the Deputy Speaker, Jonita Bierkes. You can also just share some light in terms of our readiness.
Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Ulrich. And now today it's one of the big days of the Northern Cape. And as the provincial legislature, together with the community of the Northern Cape, we are watching and want to hear today what is it that the Premier of the Northern Cape will bring to, will give to our community today. And I think what we expect her to do is really to address the manifesto of which she will derive the speech from. And secondly, then also, we and the community would like to know what is the plans to just uplift the economy in the province, and how best will the province then create jobs for the community. That's our expectations.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Mr. Moimang, like the Deputy Speaker said, we are in very trying economic times. We have job losses. We are in the midst of an excruciating drought, although, as you see, it's raining. What do you expect the Premier to say in terms of that?
Key areas of concern that are of importance to us as the Northern Cape Provincial Legislature. One is the reality that more than 4,000 job losses will be suffered in the iron ore belt. 400 employees will also lose their jobs in South 32. The emerging black manganese players in the Kalahari minefield will also be experiencing some difficult times. So the expectation is that the Premier must be able to speak to that. All this expectation is informed by the fact that the slow demand in terms of our commodities definitely will have an impact in terms of our revenue generating capacity. So therefore we expect the Premier to talk to the financial prudence such that we are then able to use our financial infrastructure grant to be able to inject and also boost the economic growth through public investment in terms of our infrastructure. The second point that we expect the Premier to deal with is the issue of education, which is very critical to our communities. We have agreed that there is a need to ensure that there is much more vigor that is injected and invested in terms of in turning around our education system. We have also said the issue of the white paper on the National Health Insurance Scheme must be addressed. But other than that, I think what is critical is the 9-point plan that the Premier is expected to also shed light on in terms of ensuring that indeed there is stimulation in terms of economic growth, particularly taking into account the weak currency, which obviously is a challenge to us as a province.
One thing why the Premier's speech this year will also be keenly watched is because of the 2 vacancies that exist within the provincial cabinet. She did mention in previous interviews that she will, around this time, likely make an announcement in terms of filling those vacancies.
Definitely, we don't expect that announcement today because we don't want the message to our province to be clouded by reshuffling news. So definitely we expect the Premier to be more vocal in terms of the back to basic. How is it, what is that you're going to do to ensure that indeed we turn around a local government? What is it that we need to do to ensure that indeed we intensify public interaction and interface between ourselves as government and also our communities? What is it that we need to do to ensure that indeed the issue of ESCOM debacle is addressed, particularly taking into account that there are some of our municipalities that are beginning to experience some challenges. So therefore the expectation is that Premier must talk to good governance, Premier must talk to financial sustainability and viability, Premier must talk to what is that we need to do to ensure that Khotsopola Nala is indeed becoming a theme that finds resonance across all our 32 municipalities.
Final question, Mr. Speaker. In other legislatures and indeed in the National Parliament, we've seen disruptions. How prepared are you and what have you put in place to minimize, if possible, those disruptions?
Look, in terms of the relationship that you have with the opposition parties in our province, we have not had any drama and we don't expect any drama. Obviously, if there are any point of orders, a point of privileges, we are ready to deal with such points.
Thank you very much. That's the Speaker of the Northern Cape Legislature, as well as the Deputy Speaker, Ms. Jonita Beekers. They joined us to talk about the State of the Province address that's due to be delivered by the Premier of the Northern Cape, Sylvia Lucas, in a couple of minutes. She will, as I said, tackle some issues with regards to the economic crisis that the province and the country find itself to, but specifically focusing on this province. We heard that she's going to elaborate on a 9-point plan, not going to do the reshuffle as indicated earlier, but that will also be within the next couple of weeks, Mr. Speaker. Definitely. And that's it from Kimberley, and it's back to the studio.
That's our reporter there, Ulrich Hendricks in the Northern Cape. Order, order. Now, the armed forces of South Africa have invaded Port Elizabeth this weekend. During this week, the combined armed forces will be displaying their various capabilities in the lead-up to the Armed Forces Day on Sunday. In 2012, the President proclaimed the 21st of February as Armed Forces Day. It is a day that South Africans honour the men and women in uniform entrusted with the responsibility of defending the country and protecting the South African population. Our SABC reporter Janine Lee is at one of the display areas at Kings Beach in Port Elizabeth to tell us about the events taking place there. And I believe she's with a guest, Lieutenant General Norman Yangeni, Chief of Human Resources Department of Defence. Janine, a very good morning to you.
It's actually a display by all the armed forces, by the Navy, by the Army, by the Air Force, But what I have to tell you is where we are here today at King's Beach, there is the most amazing demonstration by all the armed forces. It's a park, almost a theme park, and the people of Port Elizabeth have come out in their numbers to look what's on offer. And who knows, maybe take up a career in the Defence Force. We never know. We could be looking around. I might be looking at the new general or the new head of the Army or the Air Force at the moment. But as you said, Eben, correctly so, I'm joined this morning by General Norman Yengeni, who's going to tell us more about what the purpose of this, can we call it a fan park or demonstration? What is the sole purpose of it, sir?
Yeah, we are here in Port Elizabeth at the fan park. We call it the fan park because this is actually the place where we are showcasing our capabilities, because in the Defence Force as a whole, we are different arms of services, wherein you get the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, and the medical services as well. So all these tents that you see around here is where each arm of service is showcasing their capabilities, as well as divisions within the Defence Force. Like myself, I'm a division of human resources in the Defence Force, where we do the recruitment of the community to join the Defence Force. That is why you see we have invited kids from schools to come to see if they are interested in careers, because there are a number of careers in the Defence Force that people don't know of.
Now, General, does one arm of the Defence Force for this whole week carry more weight than the other, or is it an equal opportunity, an equal drive by all arms of the Defence Force?
Yeah, in fact, it's a joint operation, it's a joint exercise. All of us are pulling, but it is actually this year being hosted by Chief of the South African Navy, who's standing there. Most probably you will have a talk with him later on, but he's the host, and all of us, the other chiefs of other arms of services and division, we are in support. So it's really a joint venture as it is right now.
Now, sir, what growth has the Armed Forces week or day had over the years? Because we started in 2012.
Yeah, currently, as you may know well, since the integration of the different forces to create a new defense force, there was a great inflow into the defense force. But currently now, after 20 years of democracy, obviously people are getting old, you know, they've reached pensionable ages and so on, and others now it's time to retire and so on. But we do daily recruitment or annual recruitment in order to fill in the attrition rate of the Defence Force. So the Defence Force has been quite stable a lot. I think in terms of numbers, because you should understand the numbers also have to do with the budget, with the budgetary issues, because you have to pay people. It doesn't have to just bring in people, but it's costly. We have to pay them. Currently, the Defence Force numbers are still stable as they are, plus minus 100,000 people at this stage that are operating within the Defence Force. So, yeah, the Defence Force is quite having a normal growth and stability at this stage. That's what I can say.
Now, sir, I believe tomorrow evening there's going to be excitement on King's Beach. We're going to have some of the weapons being fired, that type of thing. Could you just, for our viewers, share what's going to be happening?
Yeah, there's going to be a buzz and a vibe around here, because we also want to showcase, like I said, these capabilities. There's going to be a shooting around, you know, flares and all that, in order for the Port Elizabeth community to be able to see, you know, the Defence Force in action, and what type of these capabilities that we have, how can we defend the community in times of need, and all that. The piracy, for instance, within the seas, we know there is piracy, and on all other issues of criminality and so on. There will be such demonstrations that will be shown within this fan park.
Now, we are the friendly city. How has the Defence Force been treated today?
Yeah, we love it here in Port Elizabeth. You can look around, really. It's a great atmosphere here. The school children, they have been coming in numbers. I've been seeing this. They have been coming in droves. but we're looking at also seeing the community of Port Elizabeth as well coming in here.
General, thank you very much for your time today. As you've heard, lots on offer, and everything will culminate on Sunday when President Jacob Zuma will lay a wreath at the SS Mendi. He will then take the salute from all of the Defence Force members when they do their march past. So that's the big day to look out for. But from us here in King's Beach and Port Elizabeth, it's back to you in the studio.
That's Janine Lee in Port Elizabeth with that report. It's going to be happening over the weekend. Make a turn if you're in the area. But we'll be back in a moment, so stay tuned.
Are you saying the king must go to jail? You are not royal blood, therefore you are going to serve time on behalf of the king. Where does the public protector stand on this matter? Are you with the marches, for the marches, against the march? If this is your ancestor, it is very much his ancestor as well, because this is the cradle of humankind. Is there God somewhere in your signs? Drinking the blood of a person with albinism gives extra magical powers. A man of the cloth is involved here because it would mean that somehow religion is being brought into this part of the myth. What do you say to it? Watch Question Time with me, Mpho Tsedu, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the SABC News Channel.
Good morning, welcome back. The time has just hit 20 before 12. I'm Kendall Makhamat and I've got your sports on Newsroom. Top of our story today is the Orlando Pirates suffered yet another defeat in this season's ABSA Premiership campaign. The Buccaneers lost 1-0 to Free State Stars. This at the Goble Park Stadium in Bethlehem last night. It was Pirates' 8th loss in the 19 league matches they played so far.
The match should have been played a long while ago in the middle of October to be exact.
After an energetic second half in their last league match last week, where they lost 2-1 to Mamelodi Sundowns, Pirates were expected to be all over Free State Stars in their tie last night. Fans came out in their numbers to support their teams in this midweek encounter, with both eyeing a spot in the top 8. The Buccaneers had a number of chances in the first half, not only to open the scoreboard, but to even kill off the match. Pirates piled pressure on Stars in search of an opening goal, but Yala Koto were resolute in defense. Tamsanga Kabuza, however, should have done better after intercepting Paulos Masehe's pass. In the second half, Stars took the game to Pirates, and 10 minutes from time, the Buccaneers were made to rue their missed chances as Ayanda Nkosi headed home to make it 1-0. 2 minutes later, Masehe made a goal line clearance to deny Lihlohonolo Majoro, thus saving 3 points for his side. Stars are now in the 7th position on the log standings with 25 points from 19 matches, while Pirates moved down to the 11th position with 23 points. Mtutuzi Ndlovu, SABC News.
I'm about to go on for race 1 and nerves all over the place. I'm actually second on the grid. So we're there and we're going to do well. So yes, a little bit of pressure.
Right now, what you just saw is something quite spectacular. At the young age of 25, Jeanine Mitchell had already established herself as an icon in the world of women's racing in South Africa. An ambassador incomparable to all for women in motorsport. Out of a field of 180 riders, there are apparently only 9 women who race in motorcycle circuits, which I will double check with Jeanine in just a bit because she's right here with us. And with her is her crew chief, Leroy Rich. Good morning, and thank you so much for coming through to Newsroom.
Thank you, Ken. Good morning.
Thank you for having
us. Now, in case anybody was unsure of who's who, Janine is right here next to me, and Leroy on the far end. Let's start with you, Janine. It's quite a thing, it's quite an odd thing, rather, for a woman, and a good-looking woman at that, to be involved in motorsport and actually succeeding at it. How does that go?
Oh, it's amazing. You know, the world of women in motorsports is growing phenomenally, and the fact that I've had the blessing to be a part of it my whole, well, about 14 years, it's incredible, and I love it. You know, being a beauty of sports and a tomboy on the same side.
No, very cool. You don't look tomboyish at all, I'll tell you now. How did you get into it?
Well, I was about 14 years old, and there was another lady racing by the name of Wilmarie Janssen van Rensburg, and when I saw her race, she won her class that day. And when I saw her race, I just saw her and I wanted to be her. And going from there, I managed to get into the racing circuit. And yeah, I went from there. And like I said, the rest is history. I've been doing it now for about 14 years.
Now, right now, what our viewers are seeing are accident pictures, which is something that I wanted to get to a little later. And I think I'll leave it for now, because I think the big thing really is you've actually followed through on a dream. And
yes.
We've got the season starting up this weekend. It's coming up this weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got our first regional happening this weekend. They're actually linking it up with the Nationals. It's going to be happening on Saturday. We're going to be racing the whole day, and there's a full field. So it's going to be quite a good team.
When you talk about full field, are you talking about 10, 20 riders?
I actually think they've got about 40 or maybe more people actually competing on the day. Our class, I think there's about 20 riders, and there's only 2 girls. So 20 riders and 2 girls, that makes it quite interesting.
No, it should be. Leroy, let me check with you. I mean, you are the crew chief. Now, what does crew chief do for a motorbike riding team?
Basically, a crew chief is someone who's in charge of the motorbike. So when the rider comes in, has a problem with the bike, she talks to the crew chief delegates with the mechanics, and then things happen and get organised for the racing. I'm a suspension specialist. So
a suspension specialist?
Yes, yeah. I've been all over the world, trained by some of the top suspension companies in the world. So basically I bring back my trade back to South Africa, working with riders like Janine, a few other top riders that I've done prep work for. So basically, I just look after Janine's bike, make sure it's 100% so that she doesn't land on her head.
I trust him with my life.
That's actually quite interesting that you put it that way, because talking about landing on your head, you had quite a nasty accident that we just showed some of our viewers right now.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Well, the question is how many accidents? I've had a few, yes.
Really?
I have. I've broken about 14 bones, but it comes with the sport. Now, the accident that you saw was actually my worst accident that I've ever experienced. Landed up in ICU. I fractured about 9 bones in that one incident. Breaking a couple. And then also, I had a blood in my lung. It was quite a serious accident. Put me out of racing for about 6 months. And you know, there's something about a passion. When you're passionate about something, no matter what you've gone through, you'll always make a plan to go back to it. I mean, if you love something, you're just an accident, you get over it and you move up.
How long did it take you to recover from that?
Well, the recovery took about 6 months. I wasn't allowed to race. They asked me to not be competitive after that for at least a year. But you know, when that helmet goes on, I promise you, everything just falls away, and you're like, racing, awesome.
I reckon by the time you put your helmet on, you've already decided you're going to race. So
exactly.
That's too late already.
Exactly. Yes.
Now, can I ask you this? Were you her crew chief then?
No, unfortunately not. Janine and I have been friends for roughly about 6 years now. We've always been on and off with delegating about setups and that sort of thing on the motorbikes. The bike she's ridden in the past, she's had some really good crew chiefs on her side. And then this year there was an opening up at Monroe Racing. It's my dad and myself's race team. I've always wanted Janine on board, as she's probably one of the best, most talented lady riders out there. So this year, I put a package together, and I said to my dad, I'll focus on her. And that's where we are today. And so far, testing has gone really well. She's showing some good signs, some good pace. A few little odds and ends that she has to work on, so what we call a spacer problem, space between the handlebars and the seat. So she's working on that. The bike is a really highly modified 600. So she's got pretty much a decent package underneath her.
So how long have you been together as a team?
like 2 months.
Yeah.
2 months? 2 months. So still very new.
Very, very new, yes.
But you've already got a couple of victories under your belt, and you've done pretty well. I mean, that's why we're talking to you right now. That's why you stick out.
Thank you.
Tell us about, right now we're looking at pictures of one of your races.
Yes, yeah. Well,
which one is this?
I think that was at Pakisa. It was the first round 2 years ago. Because I actually took a break from racing last year from a bit of, I needed a bit of a personal break with regards to the sport. And that year was my best year on 1000cc. I was the first woman to compete in the national championships on 1000cc motorbike. And specifically that day, I actually made podium. So I was the first woman to achieve podium on a national circuit as well. So it was phenomenal. I mean, that whole experience, and it's everything I've worked for throughout the years with regards to being the best female on that specific circuit. And yeah, achieving that was phenomenal.
And the third best rider on the day.
Yes.
Because I assume these are all men.
Yes, yeah. I'm the only female competing in that class, yeah.
Fantastic.
Most guys are scared of it.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how do guys receive you in this male-dominated sport?
Well, they don't like it, I must admit. As soon as that little ponytail's flapping, they just want to try and beat us. But no, we give them a run for their money. You know, there's a whole level of intimidation. I think that's like anything. Females are becoming more involved in male-dominated sports and everything that's coming out in South Africa. And when we get onto that grid, we're all equal. As soon as that helmet goes on, it doesn't matter if you're male or female, we're all equal.
No, very good stuff. Really, really quite exciting to see a woman is taking on the men at their own game, beating them, getting onto the podium. What are you looking forward to in this last season in 30 seconds or less?
30 seconds or less. Yeah. I am hoping to actually possibly take the regional championship. I'm currently competing on the 600 regionals. Like I said, I've been out for a year, so coming back is going to be my big thing, but I'm going to put all effort into it. And if I can achieve that, it'll be such a blessing.
Very good. And you're racing at Kyalami this weekend?
Racing at Red Star Raceway.
Red Star.
Yeah, we're going to be racing Red Star Raceway on Saturday. The racing's the whole day, so please, everyone must come enjoy and come and watch.
No, very good. Congratulations on getting so far, and I suppose future congratulations on where you're going later on.
Thank you, Kendall. Appreciate that.
No, very good. Leroy, Rich, thank you so much for joining us, and as well as Janine Mitchell. We really appreciate the time you've given us today.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. Superbike racer, and she's blonde, she's good looking, and very successful. That's why we take a short break. When we come back, probably more news, or maybe the end of the show.
A romantic adventure film starring Ivan Buerta and Donnelly Roberts. The story begins in the beautiful vineyards of Paarl in the Western Cape. The adventure takes off when the characters find themselves on the tropical island of Love, Mauritius.
Josephine's work is more interesting and distinguishable. She visits war-stricken zone countries to tell the story of the damage war often leaves behind.
This particular exhibition's case, places that are named after conflict or disaster or war or reconciliation.
And basically what it is it's a collection of the best animated short films from around the world this year. And the idea is to inspire animators and directors with this exciting content. And so that's been offered to us as a cinema, and we're very excited to be screening the animated show of shows here in South Africa.
Join Refulo Mula for that 1 hour weekly dose of arts and entertainment news every Friday at 9 p.m. on Trends.
good afternoon. You're watching the Midday Report.